And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to this morning's OTB AM. We're here with you all the way until 9:30. It's Thursday morning, it's 7:45, and the world is waking up this morning to a brand new definition of the word Spursy. There's a bit of interference on the line this morning. What's that? Is there? What's that?
That's the sound of the Netherlands, I think.
That is. What is it? It's John Duggan's new theme music. How you doing?
ArenA, good morning. Happy Tottenham Day. Happy Tottenham morning.
Is this the new St. Tottenham
Not a
thing?
Russian ditty, but it's not too bad, lads.
How the hell are you?
First of all, I'm not tender. I am sober. I did go to bed early. Completely overwhelmed by what I saw in the Johan Cruijff ArenA, and just if we didn't have sport in our lives, guys, what would we have? Because that was just I don't know. Just disbelief. The disbelief is still well through my veins and in my system hours later. You, in fairness, had called it the whole way long. You had a feeling in your waters the whole way, and you kept putting it out there publicly that you thought that they were going to do it. And then there was this amazing moment pre-match where you had an omen, where you bumped into Spurs royalty. Yes, I didn't know if I was exactly going to get a ticket. We were kind of hanging outside the Johan Cruijff ArenA, and Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky Villa, the two Argentina stars of Tottenham in the 1970s, late 70s and early 80s, when they won the Cup in 81, and Villa scored that great goal at Wembley, and Ozzy was such a mainstay of Spurs, of course a World Cup winner himself in the 1980s, and we saw them outside the ground, and myself and my nephew Duncan, we just got a selfie with them, and the selfie didn't turn out too bad, and that was a kind of a good start to the evening, and then the match unfolded. But it was funny because sometimes when you go to a sports event and you kind of enjoy yourself at halftime, you've got a few refreshments, you kind of take your time coming back, like might have Crook Park, whatever, and I was in that kind of mood. It was 2-0 to Ajax, it was 3-0 on aggregate. I was having a sausage roll and a beer, and I was kind of like sauntering, waddling back to my seat 10 minutes into the second half, and by the time I just got back, then Spurs scored. Lucas Moura burst through, and then it was half an hour of hold on to your seat. Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff. What was the atmosphere like in the stadium? Because I've been watching videos all morning of there's an Ajax fan taking a video kind of level with the goal, and it's like watching from the corner that happens before the goal in the 93rd minute. And everybody's like, oh, well, that's it now. I mean, clearly, they've just missed a good chance from a corner, and there's barely a whimper, and then there's deathly silence almost after the winner goes in. It was a fantastic atmosphere, Ger. It's funny, there's a section to it's almost like the south stand of the Lansdowne Road or the Aviva Stadium, where they were just all in full voice. The noise was deafening, it was permeating throughout the ground. A lot of this in the ultra section, or the hardcore section of support, ultras I mean in a good way, they all had their shirts off, and they're all waving the shirts around and that kind of thing, for most of the second half. And when you kind of feel that moment before an All-Ireland final whistle goes, when everybody is just prepared to exhale their best celebration. That's what the Amsterdam ArenA was like last night. Lloris went up for a corner. It was cleared. We kind of felt, I didn't think there was going to be another chance. I think he was going to blow it then, but he allowed another play to happen. And then Moura put it in the net. And it was just the air, the atmosphere sucked out of the Amsterdam ArenA, like Michael Laine in 1991, like 2013 when New Zealand beat us at Lansdowne Road in the rugby. Just this utter silence, apart from the 2,500 Spurs fans in the top left of the stadium, and a few of us around in the West Stand going absolutely crazy in this kind of shocked face-panned disbelief, and more so than anything else, more so than you're jumping up and down. You're just you can't believe what you've just seen in the history of the club, that they've done a knockout blow, a punch, and Ajax are dead. I want to show you this. This is Nathan and Kenny commentating in real time in studio last night. Have a look.
There'll be one final chance for Spurs. The ball is on the halfway line with Son just drilled forward by Sanchez. Llorente makes a bit of a nuisance, so it was a slip there for a split second. A shot! Oh, he's done it! He's done it! Spurs have scored! Unbelievable! The 95th minute! Spurs are heading to the Champions League final! Can you believe it? Spurs have scored! Oh my! I didn't think we could top last night. Well, there's just absolute... everybody is stunned in the stadium. All the Ajax players have fallen to the floor. 95 minutes and Tottenham have scored and have reached the Champions League final. Ajax 2, Spurs 3. Ajax were 2-0 up.
The last kick of the game. We've one more I want to show you. This is Lucas Moura in the mix zone afterwards. A brilliant piece of journalism from whoever hands him the tablet and also the earphones and plays him the commentary of the goal. Have a look at this.
Emociona, né, Lucas? É difícil falar. Eu sonhei muito com esse momento. Desde criança era um sonho para mim jogar a Champions League e sempre foi meu sonho conquistar a Champions League. E agora eu tô tendo a oportunidade de jogar uma final, tendo a oportunidade de dar essa alegria para minha família, para todos os meus amigos, para todos lá do bairro onde eu nasci. Isso é difícil explicar o que eu tô sentindo. Deus é maravilhoso. Eu sempre falo que...
Jojo's translating that for us in our ears. Is like blah blah blah. He's thanking his family, his friends, his dreams playing the final. It's like and emotional with a bit more emotion, Jojo. It's amazing stuff. Lucas Moura, like he's played well this season. He's been really good, but is he the person that you have earmarked in advance to be the Champions League semi-final second leg, second half hat-trick hero?
No, I thought it was going to be Son, Ger. It's funny, Lucas Moura, it was Unai Emery's he sold him to Tottenham at PSG, which is we're getting a bit of mirth out of this morning. But he was Tottenham's last signing. That was in January of 2018, nearly 18 months ago, 25 million from PSG. And he played very well at the start of the season. I remember being at the Cardiff game in October and actually tweeting out that he's been our best player this season. Scored 2 great goals against Man United, and it was that kind of display that he showed at Old Trafford back in August. But he kind of went off the boil, to be honest. He didn't play well in the last. I mean, wasn't playing well. Didn't play well against West Ham, I didn't think. And he's one of these kind of classic Brazilian footballers in that when it goes his way, everything can just turn into magic, and it just did. Like the second goal, I don't know how he found the net from
Amazing.
where he did. It was like trickery, and he was dribbling around the box, and then it was just in the bottom corner, and it was just so quick. And once again, like De Ligt and Blind were just around him for the winner, and it was about 16, 18 yards out, and it was just in the corner. The shot wasn't necessarily that strong, but it was just found the right place, and it was just done in one movement. And we're all talking about Harry Kane, who wasn't there last night. Her son was back or whatever. And sometimes you do need a match winner that is a bit of left field, and it was Lucas Moura.
John, like as a sports fan, is this year's Champions League, from Spurs' perspective, the greatest spectacle you've ever witnessed? I mean, like, you're a big golf fan. We've had Medina a couple of years ago. As a Clare fan, there's been many great moments. But as a Spurs fan, like, they didn't pick up did they lose their first 3 games, or they didn't get a win in their first 3 games in the group stages? You had that insane Manchester City match in the last round, and now you've got this. We can talk about the Champions League as a whole, but if you crystallise it into a Spurs fan's experience during this competition alone this season, it has been absolutely incredible.
It has, Owen. Yeah, we lost in Milan, and we lost at home to Barcelona. They were the first 2 games, I think, and then we drew in PSV. And we had to score in every single game in the group stage. We scored in the last 10 minutes. Kane scored twice against PSV at home. Ericsson scored against Inter in the last 10 minutes. Moura himself scored in Barcelona. So we weren't expecting to get through the group stage, and the City game happened. I suppose what's baked in the cake of my experience as a Spurs fan is that I've been going to games for 31 years. As a 9-year-old, I went over to see Spurs lose to Portsmouth in April 1988 when you'd fences at Whitehart Lane and that kind of thing. And we've always been a cup team. We've always been a team that would maybe finish 3rd or 4th in the league and have a good cup run and win a cup. That has changed since Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis took over the club. They've done a fantastic job over the last decade and a half. Harry Redknapp set the foundations. Maybe even Martin Yall did. But Pochettino's taken it to another new level. I think the kind of feeling I have is a kind of mysticism and a kind of a disbelief, really, because you're always expecting Spurs to let you down in the end, but this season they have not done that. So I would say maybe some of the Clare runs in the 90s were amazing personally, because my dad was a Clare man and all that kind of thing. And Clare did reach the mountaintop in hurling. Spurs have not done that yet. They still haven't won a trophy under Pochettino. They still haven't won a trophy since 2008. But I suppose the way I'm feeling is just kind of a sense of a childish disbelief over what's happened, that we're in a Champions League final against Liverpool of all teams in Madrid on June the 1st. good luck in getting a ticket for that, including myself, because it'll be impossible.
Yeah, I know. I'd booked flights to go to Madrid about 5 months ago, thinking, this is going to be grand. It'll be two teams who
Barcelona, Juventus.
Exactly. Yeah. Fans who are bored showing up, but it's not going to be the case. So.
No.
So if anybody out there has any tickets for either myself or John, we'll happily find a home for them. Team of Destiny is this thing that exists in sport where sports fans believe that this is our year because we're a team of destiny. The Liverpool fans certainly believe that at full time on Tuesday night. I've known that Spurs fans believe the same thing right now.
Yes, and in a nothing to lose way. We've got nothing to lose now against Liverpool. We're in the Champions League next season. There's a project going underway. They've just opened a new stadium. Pochettino is getting emotional and said he might quit, or he might do this, he might do that. I don't think he will. I think he might be flying a kite for more signings. We're in bonus territory. We're in I don't know what those arcade games, when you pull the lever or whatever and all the money comes out. We're in super bonus territory now. We've gone to the track and back to 33-1 winner. And now we're putting money on a 25-1 shot and it's going well in the race. That's the way I feel about Spurs this season. All the pressure, Liverpool fans, is on you. The pressure is all on Liverpool to come through and win their 6th Champions League or their European Cup in their history. So, look, we've rattled them a few times. We were the better team in the second half at Anfield and conceded a late goal there in the 2-1 defeat recently. We beat them 4-1 18 months ago. We won't be scared of Liverpool. Barcelona would have taken Spurs to the woodshed. I don't think that's going to be the case with Liverpool. And with Harry Kane, it's fascinating if you're Pochettino. Harry Kane is fit. Do you play him? Do you play him? Is he match fit? That kind of thing. And that's all the kind of thing we can look forward to. But around the country and around the world, globally, I'm going on to Google, Jaren, and I'm seeing the Washington Post, the New York Times, and CNN International talking about this. This is the elite global football competition. I was so privileged, and I'm thanking life on Instagram. Not only thanking Tottenham, thanking life on Instagram that I was there last night, because this is the, I don't know what the word is. This is the thing in sport, because everybody in the country is going to be talking about, did you see that last night? And that is just, what if you didn't have it, what would we be doing? You have to have sport in your life just to belong and share brilliant unpredictability. Yeah,
absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your time in Amsterdam, John. We'll see you real soon. Good luck.
Take care, guys.
John Duggan, live from his hotel room in Amsterdam. On the spot reaction.
Yeah, it's remarkable, really. Just to make one Game of Thrones reference, it did feel like watching Oberyn Martell versus the Mountain last night, as in Ajax swaggering around the pitch, completely deserving of the confidence with which they were playing their football. 2-0 up on the night, 3-0 up on aggregate. This was a moment for them to enjoy. This was a moment for their fans to savour. This was a time for them to showboat. Not saying they did showboat, but this was a time for them to enjoy being superior to Tottenham Hotspur. And then, as you just pointed out there, things turned very, very quickly. And
Lucas Moore stuck his finger in their eyes and popped.
The Ajax fan, Amsterdam is shell-shocked this morning, I'd imagine. It's
somebody saying, can they ever recover from this? It's the type of heartbreak. It's 2 goals in an All-Ireland final, 2 own goals in an All-Ireland final territory.
Well, the thing is, in an All-Ireland final, you get a team that can only be affected by either a dip in confidence or retirements. Whereas with Ajax, they're going to get plucked apart bit by bit by bit over the next couple of seasons, you suspect.
This summer as well, yeah, absolutely. All right, so here's what's coming up on the show for you. We've done John Duggan in Amsterdam. We're going to talk with Stephen Kelly, former Spurs fullback, to get his take on it a little bit later on. Martin Lipton's going to join us because, let's face it, the Champions League semi-finals have proven to be the best drama that we're going to see in sport in a long time. We'll bring a shot clock with Kieran Donaghy around about 25 past 8. Eoin's Power Rankings limping back in. We're going to speak with Mark O'Connor, the Kerry turned AFL star.
Limping back in?
Your Power Rankings. Yeah, they've took a bit of a paddling. They haven't been great so far.
How are they taking a bit? Well, Power Rankings aren't supposed to be great. They're supposed to be,
power.
They're supposed to just be kind
of max power,
cold and statistical and to the point, and that's what they've been.
All right, let's do the papers. We've got NBA coming your way a little bit later on as well. Breaking NBA news over the overnight: the Golden State Warriors beat the Houston Rockets in a pretty close game.
3-2 up. Yeah, what was it?
194 points.
Yeah, 4 or 5 points. Game wasn't on Irish TV for some reason. It was the Boston Milwaukee game was shown on Irish TV, but Sky Sports declined to show the biggest game of the season so far. Anyway.
Okay, so back of the Irish Independent, Mora's Dutch courage. Hat-trick hero engineers stunning comeback to set up Liverpool final. Football needs a tier 2 Evans. So this is John Evans, the Wicklow manager, talking about football needing a tier 2 and how it's difficult for him to generate enough interest really amongst the Wicklow GAA population to get the best players to turn out for the county. McIlroy not expected in the Hinch despite tour return, so Rory McIlroy signed up for European Tour so that he can start amassing points, and then Leinster won't let themselves be bullied by Saracens like Munster did, says Neil Francis, just in case you missed the dig.
It's kind of like people comparing Liverpool to Manchester United, like Phil Thompson yesterday in a big hurry. Nothing wrong with it, but there's or maybe it adds to the joy you get for the instant comparison you make between your own success and somebody else's failure.
It does, doesn't it?
Depends on your outlook.
We would never know anything about this.
Like, I'm sure John is still laughing at his Unai Emery gag there a couple of moments ago. I guess it does add to the whole sweetness of it all.
Cut you to the quick, didn't it?
I'm still bent over from that, to be quite honest with you. The Irish Examiner sports section leads with more the merrier. Hat-trick heroes 96-minute winner sends Spurs into Champions League final. Tommy Martin is writing, Cú Cullen had no puck-out strategy, but hurling's myths endure. Brian Gavin's got a column as well saying we're not helping refs and it'll hurt hurling. Here we go then, opposition running scared of Reds again, says Virgil van Dijk. The build-up to this Champions League final is going to be something else over the next couple of weeks.
So, the back page of the Sun, you couldn't make it up. I mean, fair play to, that's the level of like, look, we've got no headline for you today. We just can't do it. This doesn't. There's no headline that would do justice to this. Ajax 2, Tottenham 3. Lucas hat-trick as Poch heroes duel Liverpool. Hey, but I definitely think Spursy should stop being 4-0 up at Man United and losing 6-4. It's really over, Bale. Real Madrid are ready to freeze out Gareth Bale and dump him in the under-23s unless he finds a new club. I would happily play with the under-23s for 400 grand a week or whatever it is he's on. I'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to start eating ice cream. I'm going to start playing PlayStation, and I'm going to just like not pay any attention to the under-23 coach, because let's face it, what are you going to do?
It's
have a fully guaranteed contract. Screw you.
It's a fantastical way of life. I'd like to think that Gareth Bale has got to where he is by having a mindset that's a little bit different to your mindset, though.
Yeah, but he's at the end of his career now. It's like, and it's 400 grand a week. He's got to the point where he did use all of his guile, athleticism, hardcore winning mentality to get to this point right now. But now he's there. Now he's reached the top of the mountain.
Okay.
And he can relax, and the rest of his life is going to be, I've got 27, 30, 45, 55 million quid in my bank.
Let's forget everything that's happened over the course of the Liga season this season and Gareth Bale's year. Let's pretend he is still at the level he was in the Champions League final last year. He's probably not too far off it. He could probably get back to that level.
Where he was a sub, go on.
Well, he won the game. He won the game for Real Madrid.
He's a sub off the bench.
If money is no object, do Tottenham Hotspur bring him back?
Oh, no.
This summer?
No. That's a Manchester United signing.
It is a Manchester United signing.
Too expensive, not that interested in football anymore. Like, it's Alexis Sanchez Mark II.
But no, I'm taking away the too expensive element. To say if money's no object, say you don't have to pay him $500,000 a week. On a purely footballing level, would Mauricio Pochettino say, this is the right footballing move for this team? This team that are...
Really asking me, would Spurs sign a world-class player? That's like. Well, but in this case, is it specifically Gareth Bale? Because you can't ignore. So you can't ignore the injury history. You can't ignore the fact that he hasn't played football properly for a year in a meaningful fashion. Like, he's a really good footballer. Of course, Spurs should be interested in him if you were getting good Gareth Bale. But if you're getting Gareth Bale, who has made it and has decided that my body aches, I don't really deserve to be kicked anymore. I'm so rich, I don't need it. Mm-hmm. Which would you do? Well, what are you going to do?
Well, that's the question. That is the conflict that you would have. And you kind of look at what happened last night in Amsterdam and say, I don't think that squad needs that right now. A couple of weeks ago, I was like, definitely, it would be a fantastic kind of poetic signing to bring him back to Spurs, but I'm not so sure anymore. The Irish Times leads with Ajax left shell-shocked as Moore leads stunning Spurs fight back. Mary Hannigan says Twilight Zone stuff has Tottenham complete, mission impossible. A couple of previews then for the Europa League tonight. Could we have an all-English final in that as well? Transfer ban will stop Chelsea competing for title, says Sarri. They're up against Eintracht Frankfurt. It is 1-1, and Emery urges Arsenal to focus on chance for silverware. Arsenal go to the Mestalla 3-1 up.
Could Gareth Bale be on 35 million a year? Could that be right?
Well, including endorsements.
Could it? Is that right? Is that?
No, he's on 400 grand a week.
Well, I made that 400 grand a week figure up. He could be on more.
No.
That could be netto as well. Who knows? Yeah, so earnings $34 million according to Forbes. So he doesn't need to come back to play in the Premier League. He's 29. He's got mountains to climb, actual mountains, from his...
mountains of ice cream to eat before his under-23s game.
More of the same. Hat-trick hero Lucas Moore after his late winner. As somebody said, how he didn't pull his shirt off after scoring that third goal should be a a review from Harvard Business Review, or it should be an investigation by Harvard. Like, what? How did you not put your shirt off? Like, well, what do you do when you've just scored this? I don't know. I don't know how to celebrate this. How ball boys help beat Barca. This is the. We need a new angle on the Liverpool story, but it was all over the internet yesterday. No.
Yeah, it's the ball boy thing has got an interesting element as well, because the Liverpool management realised that every time Barcelona had a free given against them in the Nou Camp, they would get frustrated, they would get petty, they would get childish, and they would turn to the referee and complain. Which is obviously a tactic from Barcelona, because if you complain enough, the referee will start to believe that they might be making the wrong decision. And Liverpool were like, we can actually take advantage of this. They are not alive at set pieces quite a bit. Let's make sure our ball boys are alive. And so it proved. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is another miracle. Poch in tears as Spurs copy Kop to book final showdown. And on verge of greatness, says the headline on the afterglow of the Liverpool win against Barcelona.
One more miracle. Another day, yet another incredible, unbelievable and spectacular comeback as Lucas fires Spurs into all-England showdown. It's mad, isn't it, that Brexit is happening against the backdrop of, this.
Well, England conquering Europe may be a metaphor that pro-Brexiteers could actually use to their favour, as Theresa May did literally yesterday, comparing herself to Liverpool.
Tory Prime Minister compares herself to Liverpool.
Didn't exactly work. I don't think it's. I don't think it had the desired effect.
25 million Herrera to PSG, but Martial is staying. So Ander Herrera has agreed a 25 million contract with Paris Saint-Germain to begin the summer clear out of Manchester United. That's 25 million quid for him. But is that not? My maths have gone bad. He's only getting 25 million quid. So is that 3 years? He's getting 8 million a year. Are footballers not getting paid more than that these days? I'm just going to whip out my calculator here. Sorry, I'm not on my phone.
While you're doing that, I'm going to go to the Heralds. And hat-trick hero Mora takes Ajax to cleaners is the headline on that one.
That's only 150 grand a week. Ander Herrera needs a much better agent.
Really?
150, 25 million
150 grand a week if you're Ander Herrera.
No.
Grand.
No.
It's grand. It's fine.
No. Should you be getting that at Wolves?
Maybe in 2 years' time. Not right now. Ander Herrera, 150 grand is that's exactly how much he's worth. It's perfect. I don't see how you've got any issue with this.
Because he's PSG, so there's a PSG tax, and it's free transfer, so there's a free transfer tax. You paid no transfer fee from me, so I'm getting that money. Yeah, 160 grand a week.
The Racing Post on their back page goes with match preview. Top Gunner can help his side hit final target. Valencia against Arsenal at 8 o'clock with a picture of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Anything you can do, we can do better. Anything you can do. Spurs stage stunning revival to set up Liverpool final, and the miracle of Anfield. All the Anfield stuff suddenly feels a little bit dated. It's like, we need more. We're going to be mainlining Liverpool stuff. It's like, actually, we need some Spurs stuff. Balls. The miracle of Anfield, audacity of Alexander-Arnold. Van Dijk, this is just a start. Messi cried, then had drug test. Yeah, apparently they left Messi behind. Did you see that story? That was my, the team bus. The Barcelona team bus left Lionel Messi behind because he couldn't piss. He needed to piss for the drug testers. So they were like, no, screw you, Messi. What did you do for us tonight?
He was too dehydrated after all the crying he did.
Messi cried. Did he actually cry?
Apparently, I saw some match report or some report saying that the only sound you could hear in the Barcelona dressing room was the sobbing of Lionel Messi, which is really heartbreaking.
I mean, come on, that's not true. It's that can't possibly be true. All you can hear is Lionel Messi crying.
Maybe he's got a very distinct sobbing tone.
I tell you something, I lost all respect for him that night.
The
Pochettino, tears.
Oh, it's amazing.
Fun.
It was brilliant.
And then, I don't know what's going on. Like, they cut the interview short.
Did they? I just saw the Twitter clip.
It was 30 seconds. It's like one question, he burst out crying, and then like, good man, thanks very much. I mean, no! Ask him another question. Or two. Why are you so emotional? What was the precise moment that you decided to cry here, Maurizio? Come on.
I loved that moment. It's brilliant. The Lucas Moore moment as well. This is like their zenith, the best moment of their sporting lives, each of them, and they're just so open about the emotion they're feeling. It's a beautiful sight to see.
Absolutely, it is great. There was a Sopranos reference in there about losing all respect. It's bullshit. So
no, I got the sarcastic tone, but I'm only like 8 episodes through the Sopranos, so
feel free to cry. It's now de rigueur for every commentary team to be on camera for the whole game, even when they're watching the stuff. So Keith Andrews was obviously having a piss. So he was missing for one of them, and then he miraculously appears for the winner. Brian Kerr is a Spurs fan? I think he is.
Yeah.
So there's loads of F-bombs in it. It's just this beep, 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 beep. Whereas all the English ones, there was I don't know if you saw the BT one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to remind everybody, over the last 18 months, Glenn Hoddle was at work for BT and had a very serious heart complaint and was rushed to hospital and looked like he might die. And here he is back at the semi-finals of the Champions League in studio for Spurs. And Rio Ferdinand, big, tall Rio, still unbelievably athletic, looks like he can still play football, kind of pushes old, ailing Glenn Hoddle off screen to the point where Hoddle's kind of like this. I'm like, Rio, you just need to be careful. That man's like, look at what's just happened. This is his beloved Spurs. You should be checking on him to make sure he's okay. Instead, like, Hoddle's kind of...
I love the way they've owned that now at this point. There was almost a shame about how himself and Lineker celebrated Messi's goal last week. And this week, Rio Ferdinand sharing it off his own social media. This is the new trend, as you say. This is how sporting directors now behave.
But that was anti-Liverpool. The Messi thing. They all hate Liverpool.
Good point.
So that
Good point. I initially thought it was because of the greatness of Messi.
Well, Lineker can celebrate a Barcelona win, no problems. That's totally legit. But also, Rio was like, yeah, it's Curry. That was what that was.
Yeah, good point. I guess I'm too much of a positive soul to think that. I just thought it was Messi's greatness being celebrated on that occasion.
The positivity bounced back off the cameras in Houston. Are you done?
I'm done.
All right, two more quick ones. It happened again! Is the back of the Times Ireland edition this morning. Ajax 2, Spurs 3, and it's just the sheer desolation of the Ajax players in complete contrast with the shock that's on the faces of the rest of the Spurs players. Liverpool told their ball boys to hurry up. It's a good story. So they did. Well done. I mean, don't all teams, when you're chasing a massive lead, tell your ball boys, is there not a pre-match meeting with the ball boys? You go, hey lads, maybe get the ball back into play pretty quickly here because we're chasing the game.
You'd like to think so, but it's more doable in Champions League because of different regulations around the ball.
The two balls.
Yeah, there's one designated match ball in the Premier League and that's it.
Yeah, as Jim Beglin had it, they've been running the two balls thing all night. What was his exact phrase? I can't remember, but he had it. He called it. Now it's Moore's miracle. Hat-trick hero hauls Spurs back from the brink to seal Champions League final against Liverpool. Anfield's unsung hero, ball boy's crucial role. He's not that unsung. He's on every bloody newspaper. He was on every single website yesterday. Graham Souness immediately afterwards said he should get a season ticket next year and 2 tickets to the Champions League final. He's pretty sung. He's like the most sung hero of the Liverpool. I mean,
I think we're singing about this guy a little bit too much.
Yeah, screw you, ball boy.
He was 5 yards away from Trent Alexander-Arnold. It was an awkward throw because it was an easy throw.
Yeah.
The most, well, it's not the most remarkable thing, but one of the remarkable angles to all this last night is that the comeback wasn't even predictable, as in the situation where Spurs would need to be in a position to make a ridiculous comeback wasn't even predicted. They were 1-0 down going into this leg. If you said at the end of the game, oh, there was a massive comeback, you're like, well, there was only 1-0 after the first leg. It wasn't like Liverpool where a big comeback was required, to the point where, like, I saw Miguel Delaney writing yesterday, he did his piece on the comebacks because there were due to be no more comebacks.
Yeah, it was too late.
Which was incredible. And like, he does make really good points. Like he was saying yesterday that it was a 6-second leg comeback from 2 goals down or more since the start of 2017. That number is now 7, of course, after Spurs yesterday. And similarly, he said that's 3 comebacks from 3 goals or more in the last 2.5 years. That, of course, is now 4. Both of those statistics stack up to more than 2 or 3 decades worth of Champions League comebacks. This is now the thing. Ever since PSG fell to Barcelona a couple of years ago, this has just happened on a more regular basis. It has been incredible. And we were just saying before we came on air, I can't remember certainly a football competition, perhaps even a sporting competition, as good as this year's Champions League in terms of excitement. It has been ridiculous. Nothing comes even close. I can't even think of anything that may even come close to this year's Champions League. We're
going to get the thoughts of Stephen Kelly in 1 second. I just want to play you this first. It is the video from the Virgin Media Studios. Brian Kerr and Keith Andrews' reaction almost killed the beep machine.
Go ball. Come on, finish. Yes! Oh, where is it? Oh, yes! Yay! Yes! Pull out there, Jet. Okay. Go on in. Yeah! Yes! Yeah, little Dixie! Right. I feel so sorry.
No, way.
Stephen Kelly, good morning to you.
How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
Good, just laughing at the beeps there.
I presume there were fairly similar sounds coming from your gaff last night as well.
There was. Just amazing, absolutely amazing. Honestly, this is probably one of the best weeks of football I've ever watched. It's just been ridiculous. And then for my team, Tottenham, to have got to the Champions League final is just beyond what I could ever imagine for the club. Honestly, it's just amazing scenes.
So we had John Duggan on earlier on. He was at the game last night and he was talking about, how much of a struggle it's been for Spurs to reach the point where it was realistic for them to consider reaching a Champions League final. And then you take into account that it didn't look realistic at all last night after 7 minutes or whatever it was. The first goal was scored, and at half time it didn't really look realistic, and then a couple of minutes in it didn't still look realistic. What happened last night, Stephen?
I just feel that the passion and heart that their manager shows on a day-to-day basis, when you see him talking, when you see him, just was exuded from the players. Basically, they just thought, you know what, it doesn't matter, we can still get back into this game, we can still try, we can still fight. And then when they changed it and brought Lorente on for Wanyama, it was just a stroke of genius, because even though Lorente, he wouldn't be people's favourite, but he just offers something a bit different and caused the defenders a slightly different change. So when Moore was then running from deeper into the box and making runs from deep, and Son as well, them two flanking him made such a difference. And then Tottenham played a bit more direct style of football than what they normally did. And to be honest, the two little touches from Dele Alli for the goal, but Moore was just, his pace he showed for the first goal getting through was outstanding. The finish was brilliant. The second goal, people underestimate how good he did. He reacted amazingly to the ball, but then his touches in the box, he took about 4 or 5 touches, got a complete full circle away from the goal, back to it, and then finished. It was just outstanding football from them. And I think overall, it's just for Tottenham to be in a position where they haven't spent in the last two transfer windows. Their squad is being slightly depleted. Their biggest player, Harry Kane, is out. For a team like this to have achieved what they've done and got the Champions League final without the money being spent like it has been in other areas and other clubs, it's phenomenal. It really is. That
second goal, I think probably everybody's talking about the winner, and the winner's the one that's being put to Titanic music all over the internet this morning. But that second goal, I think, is one of the best things I've ever seen in football, because there's so many people. It's a forest, a thicket of bodies. It's unbelievable. I think I said people are underestimating. It's a great finish. No, he reacted to the ball, got himself between the body and about 3 or 4 defenders, did a full 360 away from the goal, got himself within such a tight area, got himself back within a position to shoot, and then bent into the far corner between about another 3 bodies. It was absolutely amazing strike, amazing turn, the quickness of his feet, the delicate of his touches to keep him within a confined space and no one get near him, and to have that many people around him and the cool head to finish it off was breathtaking. Yeah, it kind of looked almost like it was a bit of a toe poke. There was not that much backlift. No, there was no backlift on it. That's the thing. He kept the ball so tight to his body that there was no real area, and because there were so many people around him, he couldn't really be having a big swing at it. And it just to get that enough power on it to find the far corner, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And to be honest, the winner also no backlift. It's almost like, and so there's no power in that, which is the reason that it scores. Yeah, it's just he's got, again, the touch from Dele Alli was sublime, but it was just the sheer delicacy of the finish that it was so delicate, and he put it in a corner where the keeper can't get it. Again, I think his confidence must have been so high, and he was almost just, everything for him seemed to be instinctive last night. Everything he did was just natural. There was no thought process to it. It was just when the ball fell to him, he was putting it away, and it was just, again, it's almost hard to describe. Being a Tottenham fan and being that's the club I went at the age of 16. They turned me from a boy to a man. They developed me into the player I ended up being for the rest of my career. So, I've got such a strong affiliation with them, and it's an absolutely amazing achievement. And I can't tell you how happy I am for them to be in the Champions League final. It's been some couple of nights for the unsung hero, hasn't it, Stephen? From Divock Origi and especially Divock Origi on Tuesday night to last night, when you mentioned Fernando Llorente there playing pretty well. But also I think we have to point out Moussa Sissoko here. He's not as much of an unsung hero, but it's not just last night. I felt in the first leg he completely changed the game in the second half and gave Tottenham that belief that this Ajax team were beatable, that they could get at this Ajax team, and that the second leg was there for the taking. And perhaps there was some of that residue belief going into the second half last night. Well, he offers them. When he came into the team in the first leg, he offered them the security for the other players to be able to attack them and get on the front foot. Ajax
when the first half of the first leg, they came out of the trap so well. They pressed Tottenham, they pushed out the pitch. The intensity and the level of pressure they were putting on them was amazing. And I was like kind of a bit shell-shocked by how it happened, and so were Tottenham. But then with Sissoko coming on, it allowed Tottenham to do the same to them, allowed them to put pressure on them, get players up the pitch, press them high and offer, and he allows them to have that intensity because you know that he's got the energy levels and the, I suppose, wit and just, I suppose, intelligence to cover the ground behind them. And yeah, he's been excellent for them these 2 games.
Am I doubting, but was Sissoko not generally regarded as a massive flop immediately after the World Cup? There wasn't this whole like, oh, look at him, he can play that well for France, but he's no good for Spurs.
Yeah,
Get him out of the
I
team.
think there was a lot of expectation on him based on the World Cup, wasn't it? So when he came to Tottenham, and the people they said they had such a high level of expectation. They expected this player to come in and be phenomenal for them, or be just a stalwart, and it wasn't there, and it didn't happen as often as it should have. But you can see he's gradually growing into his role, and he understands, and he's getting more in terms of what Pochettino wants to do and how he wants him to play. And like I said, when he's trusted in him and when he's given the belief and put him in a position where he had to do a job, he's come up front for them.
Yeah, which again I think is the hallmark of good coaching, where a player comes in, doesn't immediately succeed, and then over a period of time begins to understand. Even if you look at some of the players who previously had looked like busts over the last 18 months, probably through necessity, they've been getting some more game time. And suddenly you kind of begin to understand the impact that Pochettino can have on individuals who then obviously are also helping the team.
Yeah, I think the great managers have always had an ability to, even if a player is not being involved as much as they probably would like to be, they still feel like they're involved and they still feel like they're part of the team. You play other clubs, and the managers wouldn't be able to get that from the players. They wouldn't be able to have a squad of players that no matter who plays for them will still give everything to the manager. And Pochettino has that, Klopp has that, Guardiola has that. They all seem to, like Ferguson was famous for it, that players be told they weren't going to play for the next 10 games, but they'd still feel like the best person in the world. They have something about them where they can make their squad feel like they're all part of it and feel like they are going to be needed. And then when they come into the fray, they're not on a down, they're not so far off the pace, they're still training hard and they're still working hard and they still believe that the manager believes in them. So it's an amazing feat to have as a manager, to have your players have so much trust in you.
Harry Kane obviously wasn't at the first leg, but was there last night at the second leg, and there's reports that he's inching his way back to fitness.
Well, he sprinted onto the pitch at the end, did you see? I think he's trying to show everybody he's fit.
Do you play him in the final, or do you think, actually, look, you haven't proven that you're game fit, and history is littered with finals of like superstar players just not playing well because they've been rushed back?
I think if you can get him back fit, even fit enough to be on the bench, having Harry Kane as a substitute would be just a great thing to have, because Liverpool, they'll look at what Tottenham have been doing, and they'll know what they played against in the season as well. So they'll look at Son, they'll look at Moore, they'll look at Ali, they'll look at Llorente, and they'll think, right, this is what we have to do, and they'll fancy Van Dijk being able to stop them. But then if you have the ability to have Harry Kane as a substitute and be thrown on for 20 minutes in the game, that's something that will worry teams. I think, if he only has 15, 20 minutes to do it, if he's going to play 90 minutes, it might be a different stretch for him because it's physically and he hasn't played, and it might be too much for his body. But if he only has to do 20 minutes, being the fact that he is an absolute Tottenham legend, he is true and true sports fan, he would run through a wall for them if he has 15, 20 minutes to try and get something back. So that could be an unbelievable situation for them to be in, where they have him, because they have a strong squad, but they've never had that much strength on the bench when it comes to, so to have a Harry Kane on the bench would be a great asset.
Looking at the final, and it's been one of the sticks used to beat Pochettino and Klopp with, is this idea that they've done well but they haven't won trophies, and now all of a sudden one of them is going to win the Champions League. But ultimately, Stephen, I wonder if the last few nights have actually proven and hammered home the idea that trophies aren't irrelevant, definitely not irrelevant, but they aren't as important as we all make out. That the people who say that you can judge them on other things other than trophies have been vindicated. We've seen the scenes at Anfield, we've seen the tears in Lucas Moura's eyes and in Maurizio Pochettino's eyes last night. Sport matters no matter what the silverware is at the end, but that being said, one of them is going to be a Champions League winner. Yeah, no,
it's the thing that there's going to be, there's guaranteed to be an English Premiership team that's going to be the winner of the Champions League, and it looks like possibly it's going to be an English Premiership team winner of the Europa League. So, the strength of the Premiership at the moment is just unbelievable, and the fact that Manchester City aren't in either of these finals is even again astounding, considering how good they are and how far people thought they were ahead of the pack last season. So, the strength of the league is it's probably at its best it's ever been. But the point about the silverware, these teams have, Liverpool made the final last year and lost, and they were so dejected and distraught about it. But the level of performance they've been able to put in this season, the Premiership, to be keeping toe-to-toe with City is just beyond belief what has happened in that sense. Then to be in the Champions League and be in a position where they can win a trophy. Tottenham on the other side have been pushing, but have always fallen short. And like I said, they haven't spent what the other teams have spent, so they haven't been able to compete on that level. But for them to be in a Champions League final now, the emotion, you could see the whole place was just, the whole club, I'd say, is just this morning just pinching themselves that they can't believe that their team is being the first time in the club's history they've ever got to a Champions League final. They've been in European finals before, but nothing like this, and nothing at the level that teams are playing at now with the superstars that are in the world like Messi, Ronaldo. None of these are in the final. Tottenham have got there. So it's amazing to get there, but to top it all off and walk away with a winner's medal, that's what the players will think about at the end of it.
Stephen, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thanks very much.
Stephen Kelly, ex-Spurs, giving us his thoughts in the aftermath of, the biggest night in their club's history, certainly since 1961.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a double that year. It has to be. It just has to be. I think it's kind of hammered home a little bit more given how the continental element of it. That was a domestic double in 1961. There is something absolutely astonishing just about the way they've done this, and the way they managed to take out a great Pep Guardiola side out of the Champions League and then do this in Amsterdam. Granted, people will say, well, Liverpool's opposition was much tougher, but doing this in 90 minutes, making the comeback happen within the 90 minutes is an incredibly tough mental task. And Pochettino described them all as superheroes last night. I think pretty much every Spurs fan would agree with that.
Kieran Cunningham tweeted out the great Danny Blanchflower's quote from, I think it must be from around the 60s or 70s. The great fallacy is that the game is first and last about winning. It's nothing of the kind. The game is about glory. It's about doing things in style with a flourish, about going out and beating the other lot, not waiting for them to die of boredom. That's the great Northern Ireland footballer Danny Blanchflower, and the great Spurs footballer Martin Lipton is on the line. Martin, Danny Blanchflower was certainly one of the spirits that Spurs were channeling last night, because it was all about guts and glory in that second half, and it was also about doing things in style. And Lucas Moura's second goal is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how he managed to do that. He made more touches in a small area than you could possibly imagine, and then managed to turn the ball into the net. It was a truly remarkable evening, the greatest evening, I would argue, in Tottenham's history, which is long and not always illustrious. And as a Spurs fan, sitting in my front room, watching at home, thinking, oh, this one's gone. And then, oh, crikey, that's going to be worse now. It's a near miss too. Oh, my word, what have I seen? Truly, truly remarkable.
Yeah. So you can't really believe that it's going to happen until the game's over, because it's the last kick of the game.
The last kick of the tie, they were trailing for 175 minutes, level for 10 minutes at the start of the first leg, and ahead for 2. And they've gone through. You could not have drafted a more unlikely script. Truly remarkable. Given the circumstances as well, they've missed their talisman who's sitting in the stands. They're without Winks, who's their best passer. They're shot to bits. They absolutely, as you've seen in the last few weeks, there's nothing left in them. And yet from somewhere they found the drive, the energy to keep going. And also, let's be honest, they had some huge slices of luck. Ajax should have won the first leg 3 or 4. They hit the post at 1-0. Yesterday there were great chances in the second half, and Ziyech played brilliantly, but they didn't go in. They missed by a whisker. They hit the post, and everything had to go Tottenham's way. And in the end, with the last throw of the dice, it did.
Let's talk a little bit about Pochettino, because it's definitely his triumph. As much as any other manager has ever willed his team to success, the fact that he hasn't been able to just go out and supplement his team with some of the best players in the world over the last 2 transfer windows, the fact that it was Lucas Moura who was their last signing at Christmas 2 years ago, effectively at this point, 18 months ago, that's an incredible achievement for somebody.
Oh, without question. You look at the transfer situation at the club, the uncertainty throughout the season about where they would be playing. The fact that they the World Cup took a bigger toll, a greater toll on Spurs with a smaller squad than any other team in the world, because there were 12 players at the World Cup, 11 of them in the final stages. They played more minutes at the World Cup than any other team. Just shows what an incredible job he has done. And this has not been a vintage season by any stretch. I mean, there's frustrations at Tottenham at the way the season fell apart from the position where they were potentially title challengers at the end of February. But if they were to go and make the impossible dream reality in 3 weeks' time, all of that gets forgotten.
If you're Pochettino, is there a little bit of like, all right, so we can do this with this squad? Is that what Joe Lewis is going to think? Is that what Daniel Levy's message will be? Well, you're doing all right with no money now, Mauricio. Why do you need to start investing?
Because this is the end of this team. You can see, whatever happens, this team is going to be broken up. I think there'll be 6 out and 6 in. Some through choice, some through necessity. You've got to do it. They have reached, whatever happens, this group of players collectively, and it's basically been the same team for 4 seasons, remember. They haven't made too many changes. They've reached the end of the road, and they know it. Everyone knows it. And it will be a summer of pretty radical change. But the guiding philosophy will remain, and that's the key. And also, and a lot of the key players will remain, the likes of Kane and Dele Alli, who was outstanding, I thought, last night. Absolutely brilliant. Showed for the ball all game, not scared, created goals. Son will stay, Moore will stay. But there'll be some changes.
Will Eriksen go?
I think he will, yeah. I think he wants away. I mean, if the bid comes in from Real or Barcelona, and probably Real, it's hard for him to say no. It's hard for Spurs to say no. He's got one more big move in him. He's been at Spurs for 6 years. If he was to, whether it happens, whether he leads him to the promised land or not from central midfield, he's done his time, I think, and he'll feel that way. And I don't think you can begrudge him the chance to play for the biggest club in the world.
It's interesting then, in the context of what you just said, looking at some of Maurizio Pochettino's quotes in the build-up to the game. Then also last night he said it can be an amazing close to this chapter by playing in a final. If we won, it would be an amazing book. The sort of past tense tone to this, that perhaps he kind of deep down realises that it's going to be a different squad next year. If he is still there, Maurizio Pochettino, which you suspect he might be. But with a different squad, even if it is improved on paper, there is still sort of this squad mentality, this culture that they now have. They're on this journey together, which is perhaps going to achieve higher things than any new squad will achieve next year.
Well, I'm not sure, because he brought that mentality in when he brought this squad together, which at the end of his first season at the club was getting rid of all the deadwood. And some of the players who played really well for him were cleared out as well. The likes of Ryan Mason, who was a good player and cared passionately. He didn't think he was quite good enough, and therefore told him, "Look, you're not going to play. I've got to let you go." And others as well. And he brought a team together and made them infinitely better than the one he'd inherited, because he'd had a year to look. He now knows basically this has been his year to look. He knows exactly what those players have got left, and he knows what he has to bring in. The thing is, what he wants is young players who are willing to do 2 training sessions day after day, week after week, who are ready to work for him, to run for him, to play his way. He's been looking at those players all season.
It'd be great to see that vision backed with the finance in a similar way. I mean, so Liverpool obviously made all that money, but that was because they sold Coutinho. But it did look like they were ready to sign Van Dijk and spend what it took when the Van Dijk opportunity came along. It would be great to see what would happen at Spurs if they could go out, and if the manager identified a hole in the team and there's a 70 million player who's going to fix that and make the team better. I'd love to see what they could do in this stadium with this manager and this quality of cast.
Well, I suspect they're going to spend a net 65 to 70 million this summer. But that includes, or take into account, they're going to probably make 100 million from sales. So that's 170, 180 million being spent, I suspect, by the club. That should buy you quality. I think there's players they're looking at who are young and fresh. They do like, I'm told, Aaron's at Norwich, the right back, because they need to upgrade at right back. They've clearly got interest in Maddison from Leicester, who's an excellent player. I'll be quite keen to see them look at Tielemans as well, who I think is terrific. In fact, quite a lot of those Leicester players. I've got to say, there's some fantastic players there. But they probably could do with a marquee signing as well, just to be a statement of intent. Mind you, having got to a Champions League final, unless something remarkably unlikely, particularly Arsenal and shot to bits themselves in opinion all their hopes on the Europa League, happens on Sunday, being in the Champions League again next season, with the guaranteed income stream of £4.5 million a game from the new stadium, in addition to 150 million in Premier League TV money, they can afford to buy.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And they also have an appeal now. They are an established European force in a way that they weren't.
And the stadium is amazing. Everybody keeps raving about how good the stadium is, and that like it doesn't have that much of an impact on a player's decision, but it just has a little bit of an emotional. Am I going to go to Arsenal and play in front of a crowd where it's quite quiet a lot of the season, or am I going to go and try and be part of this amazing revolution that definitely has its foundations built properly? Last point for me. How do they match up against Liverpool is the obviously big question for the next 10 days that we're all going to be wrestling with.
Well, they lost both games this season. The first one was a massacre. It was 2-1 Liverpool masquerading as 5-0 because they battered Tottenham, albeit the Spurs should have had a penalty in injury time. It would have theoretically made it 2-2. It would have been snatch of the day. Whereas at Anfield the other week, Spurs were the better team. They lost 2-1, but they were the better team, and Sissoko should score. Ali nearly scores. Despite a poor start, Tottenham actually played extremely well. I just think that Liverpool got better players and more of them in better form. The one thing is it's 3 weeks between this weekend and the next game. Form goes out the window to a degree because there is no form because players haven't played for 3 weeks, so there's a bit of ring rust there as well. I just suspect that Liverpool are slightly better. The league table says they're miles better. And normally class counts.
It's a fair point. The greatest night in Spurs history, that's how we started this. I think it's probably fair enough. I mean, certainly I'm sure there were some Danny Blanchflower nights that were fairly amazing, doing a double in 61.
One of those was in Holland, in Rotterdam in 63, when they became the first English team to win a European trophy and beat Atletico Madrid 5-1. There were the other two European trophy finals against Wolves and Anderlecht when they won the UEFA Cup, and also the defeat to Feyenoord as well in 74, which was a bit disappointing. But this is the European Cup. The closest before were in their first season when they were sploshing Dukla Prague and other teams and got to the semis, and they still complained, the players, and that they robbed by the officials against Benfica. That was a very different competition, a different age. This is the Champions League, the league of the billionaire clubs. They've outlasted Manchester United and Manchester City and Bayern Munich and Real Madrid and Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain and Juventus and all of these super clubs. They're in the final of the Champions League. If they win it, that becomes the greatest night in the club's history. At the moment, last night was.
Fair enough. Martin Lipton, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million.
No worries. Take care. Bye-bye.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Doesn't feel real.
It doesn't. It's like have to list off these other teams that we're now the same as.
It's madness. If you'd said this to Tottenham fan 15 years ago, that this would have and not only kind of fluking your way to a Champions League final. Granted, you need a bit of luck, especially when you do it in that manner against Ajax and the scares they had in the first leg. But Spurs go into that game pretty much happy enough to brush shoulders with the best in Europe at this point. And this is a structure and a club that isn't going to go anywhere, and it is going to be a vital summer, which seems kind of weird to say when they've reached the highest peak that they've had in recent years, that this is going to be such a vital summer of upheaval, which it could be for Tottenham Hotspur.
All right, that is where we're going to leave our Spurs coverage for now. We'll come back to it a little bit later on. We'll talk more Liverpool too, and we're going to be talking NBA in some detail a little bit later on, but it might also come up in what's next. Shot Clock is standing by. Next, we're going to bring you this. First though, Liverpool are now the only thing standing between Spurs and European glory. Club legend Steve McManaman was on last night's Off the Ball reacting to their 4-0 thrashing of Barcelona. Have a look.
Have you ever experienced anything like Anfield last night?
No, mate, I haven't. I actually think it was better. I mean, I know people are saying what was better between themselves, between that game and the 45 minutes in Istanbul, but I think it was yesterday. Firstly, because it was at Anfield, it was special. I think they rode their luck a lot of the time, I thought, in Istanbul. They missed all kinds of chances. Jerzy Dudek had to make all kinds of fantastic saves. last night was very, very one-sided. That's why I thought it was even better. And then, coupled with the fact that they've got the best player in probably in the history of football. If you go along with the likes of him and Cristiano, depending on who you like, but when you've got him on the other side as well, and the fact that he could score a goal at any time of the game, I thought yesterday's game was the best, the one that you'll talk about, for in the annals of a wonderful Anfield history. I think this was the game that everybody will talk about.
All right, it's time for this week's Shot Clock. The rules are fairly simple. We take a topic, we got 2 minutes. At the end of it, you guys get to decide who wins or loses. Kieran Donaghy, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, Jar. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to this. We've got Mark O'Connor as our short interview all the way from Geelong down under, where he's tearing up trees and making Kerry fans jealous about how good he is. I mean, there's only one place for us to start this week, and that's with comebacks. We weren't sure if this was going to make it when we were talking about this after the Liverpool comeback, and then Spurs went in, and we just have to talk about some of the greatest comebacks that we've ever seen. It's hard to decide which of those two comebacks was better. Owen's making the case a little bit earlier on that Spurs have to do it in the middle of a match. At least with Liverpool, they know exactly what's happening at the start of the game, and nothing really changes for them. And yet at the same time, as Steve McManaman just said, Leo Messi's on the other end of the pitch, so I don't know which of these is the greatest comebacks. I can't split them.
I like, to be honest, it's just amazing that we got two of these comebacks back to back, night on night. We've never seen anything like it. I'd agree with Eoin. I think having to react at half time when you're 2-0 down the night and they have an away goal and you're kind of going, okay, we've scored 3 in 45 minutes. That was I think a small bit tougher. But Barcelona do have Messi down the other end of the pitch, so I get where McManaman is coming from. But it just, when a team is trying to make a comeback like that, you always look to what the keys are, and obviously momentum is a big one, and both teams got that at different times. Liverpool got a bit of momentum early on, 4 minutes in, or 7 minutes in, they've got a goal. It settles them down. It reaffirms what Klopp would have been telling them all week to get the early goal and stick in it. So there was no real ruffling of Liverpool's feathers as in such. The second thing you have to have is huge belief, and you have to have belief in yourself, your manager, the team, the season that you're on. And that can't be just generated, that can't be just thought up of the night before a game. There has to be real belief in the squad to make a comeback like that. And I think the last and the most important thing that any team needs if they're looking to make a comeback on something like this is just complete desperation, Jar, because any great comeback in sports, it always boils down to one team being absolutely desperate, one team being absolutely out of their mind to win. And if you look at some of the great Champions League comebacks, we even look at Liverpool out in Athens at the 3-3 game. They were desperate in the second half. Next thing, they got a bit of momentum from Gerrard, they got a bit of belief, and then their desperation took them over the line. So them last 2 games have been unbelievable in my eyes. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly it. A bit of desperation. That's the secret sauce that adds it all back up. Where are we going to next? We're going to talk NBA playoffs. I think NBA playoffs. Just going on am I right with NBA playoffs there,
We'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it. Come on, you can't delay this any longer. What was the score in last night's game? I'm sorry, I haven't heard yet. What was the score?
Okay. We've got a few things to talk about in the NBA playoffs. We're getting good reaction on Shot Clock, the NBA, so I wanted to keep it going. I think there's 2 big stories come out of last night's playoff games. I think Kyrie is done in Boston. It's kind of been documented now. It looks like he might go elsewhere, possibly New York. But his body language and the whole project was kind of based around getting Kyrie to go along with all these young superstars that Danny Ainge had worked so hard to with all the trades, etc., and draft picks over the last few years. And Kyrie was seen to be his missing piece. And his body language last night and in the last few games since it's gone against Boston. And to be honest, all season, I don't think he's been really in it. And there'll be question marks over him. So it'd be interesting to see where he goes next year, because he is still one of the elite point guards in the league. But I just think his legacy was a bit tainted by how he kind of went out with a damn squid, if that's how he's going to go out, because he was injured last year in the playoffs. It was all about Terry Rozier. And obviously the other story is your boys got the Warriors got my Rockets last night, but KD is out. KD got injured, so he's a calf strain. So, look, every game is held home court advantage. We talked about it in Shot Clock a number of weeks ago about this home court and home field advantage, and I just think it's huge.
Did James Harden play last night? I missed him in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he played, but it wasn't too. Yeah, he was a bit disappointing late on. I won't lie, he was a bit disappointing late on. But I still think at home he's going to get game 6, and in game 7, if the Warriors don't have the Harden, it's going to be tough.
And what about Steph? Everybody going, oh, Steph's disappeared. He's played 2 bad games. Well, it's no good. Last night, apparently in the fourth quarter, he was on fire.
Yeah, I think like Steph has this in the locker, but he kind of Durant. He's kind of handed that buck over to Durant to be the main man. But we all know how good Steph Curry is, and I think once Durant went down, I think Steph said, "Okay, Durant is gone. Let's take this game over and show people why I'm one of the best players in the world."
Okay, we're moving on. Am I doing Klopp next? Is that what you said? Yeah, so let's do Jurgen Klopp next. For some reason, there are some people out there who don't really understand Jurgen Klopp. They think that he's a spoofer. They think that this is all for show. They think that the cursing on TV is bad form. They think that he should be fined for it. And they don't understand that what we're witnessing is finally the perfect match of manager and club in a way that every other club in England must be looking at going, why didn't we break the bank to get him? Arsenal could have had him, Man United could have had him, Chelsea could have had him. If they'd gone and said, look, Jurgen, you can be the king. We'll let you do what you want. But it was only Liverpool who took the risk, and they're being rewarded for it. And it turns out that you do need the right characters and the right roles for certain clubs, and they've got it.
Yeah, they have it, and Klopp does get a lot of stick, especially off United fans that are probably a bit jealous underneath it all that they didn't go get him, and they see what he's done with Liverpool. One, the football they're playing, how entertaining it is. But two, Ger, we talked about it. We talk about it all the time about characters in sport, and Klopp is a character. We give out about managers that are stone-faced, that don't give anything away, that don't show any emotion. But yet sometimes I hear people giving out about Klopp because he shows too much emotion, or he's out fist-pumping the crowd, or he's running down the touchline. The guy's got character. The guy's always been that way. That's his persona. That's the way he is. And to be honest, I think he's an absolute breath of fresh air, and the job he's doing with that Liverpool team. And yeah, okay, he's won no trophies, which is the jibe he gets and the jibe he got against with Borussia Dortmund as well. But if you look at what them two teams have done, he's come over to when he came over, it was kind of Chelsea, United, City, Arsenal, Liverpool. You know, there was no real mix. Now he's up there. Liverpool are out a step themselves. When he was with Borussia Dortmund, he was going against one of the best Bayern Munich teams of all time. And, I think his character, his personality, and I love the way he talked in the build-up to the Barcelona game, Jerry. I don't know if you read it, but I was reading a paper the day before the game, and he was kind of saying, magical stuff can happen at Anfield, and it could be a magical night. And he obviously instilled that belief and momentum that we talked about in the comeback section there on the first topic, which was, you've got to instill belief into the team. And I think nobody better than Klopp to do that. And, certainly I would love to play for a guy like that. Other people don't like the way he goes about things, but I think his character should be celebrated. Absolutely.
You did come up with the idea of the 2-point line in GAA as a way of maybe changing the current structure of the game and trying to reward people who can kick the ball over the crossbar from beyond 35-40 metres.
Yes, it's just a suggestion, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Hurling and football, I think football is going to have a big summer this year. And I think hurling was unbelievable last year. But I'm just looking down the line. I'm almost looking 10, 20 years down the line, Ger, because in 1979, the NBA brought in the 3-point line, and the 3-point line revolutionised the game. Guys worked on their shot from longer distance. They practiced it. It became a weapon. It became a comeback tool if you were losing a game. And I just think if you had a 2-point line in 10 or 20 years, just an arc, obviously different distances for football and hurling, but maybe, we're going to have Mark O'Connor on later on. They have a 50-point arc in the Aussie rule, a 50-metre arc, which it just states that any kick from these distances is beyond 50 metres. And I always wondered, for the AFL, could they, and we might even ask Mark this later on, but could they kind of get 9 points for a kick from outside 50, that teams would be actually trying to work kicks from long bombs, they call them in Aussie rules. But, I just think it'd be a hugely exciting way to help our game become even better than what it is, the product I'm talking about.
We had Paul Flynn on earlier in the week talking about his retirement, and he made the point that the team that got beaten by Donegal was his favourite team to play on, and that he looks back on that day as a day when they could have changed the history and the future of Gaelic football if they'd won that game, because in that first half, I don't know if you remember, but himself and Connolly were kicking bombs from the 40-metre and beyond line. They both had 3 points, if not 4 each, by half-time. And it was one of the best expositions of displays of long-range kicking that I've ever seen. It was beautiful to watch, and they got beaten, and we got the blanket defence, and we had crap teams from Division 3 and Division 4 trying to mimic Donegal without half the talent that Donegal have. So absolutely, I'm all for it. You've convinced me.
And like it'd be kind of mad, but like, you know, we've people that encourage you not to kick the ball from outside 45 now, you know, but yet everybody wants to see these long kicks. So I just think it's going to be reduced. It's going to be reduced down to where, you know, teams just don't really take on these long kicks anymore. Like you said, like Flynn and Connolly were two of the best exponents. Flynn certainly in the second half of his career had worked on his kicking so much that he became almost automatic from long distance out in the right wing. But like, how funny would it be if you were losing a game and you know, and then you're encouraging guys to go away and work for hours on this kick outside the 45 so they can get brilliant at it, and it can be a tool and it can be a weapon for a guy to get on the team. Well, look, we got to play Donaghy. He can kick points from 55 yards. You know, they're all worth two to us. So it's not saying I can kick it from 55 yards, Jared, before you get on me.
There was that one time, right?
But just the one time. But yeah, I just think it'd be a good way maybe just to make our games even more exciting. And I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah. Maybe the shot clock viewers can come back and kind of go, it would work, it wouldn't work. But we're not ruling it out. Down the line, 2025, could we see or 2035, could we see a 2-point arc in there?
Well, we start the conversation today. It will take about 20 years before anybody actually pays attention to these things. That's how it works. So well done, yeah. We'll be all men. The last one we're going to do here before we get to Mark O'Connor, impact players. We've heard some coaches try and sell the subs role as finishers. You know, we don't have subs, we have finishers. We've got starters and finishers, and finishers are going to be on the field when the tournament is won. Do you want to be on the field at the end or the start? And that's how they kind of, you know, let down guys that, well, actually, you're only really worth 20 minutes to me. But it turns out that all that has a special logic to it, because we've seen it this week with, it wasn't the first set of players for either Liverpool or for Spurs last night. You do need a really strong squad, and you need the squad players to understand that they need to be able to be effective in the biggest games, because that's the end of the season when players, the first teamers, are injured. So I don't know how the hell you manage this as a manager, but like we all need to recast our whole sense of what sport means these days.
Yeah, Jesus, listening to you there, I thought you were like a manager dropping me. I've been dropped a few times. I've been given that line too about do you want to be the guy that's going to be in the game when the game's in the melting pot? And it is a kind of but 100% you're right. And you know, look, I'm obviously coming from a basketball background where you've got 12 guys in the team, but only 5 guys are on the court at any one time, and your subs and your impact players, and you know they have awards for in the NBA. You've got the 6th man of the year is a very lucrative award to win, because it basically says you're bringing the most punch off the bench, and it's hugely important in more sport. And I think, like, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, you know, subs were almost these guys that went up and togged out and sat there and weren't really a part of it, weren't well known, and weren't brought on unless somebody was after getting decapitated or injured or something like that. You brought on these guys. But now you're seeing more in GAA. We talked about it in Shot Clock a number of weeks ago, but maybe getting more of a kind of an interchange rule going on in the GAA, where you can have guys coming in and out, and guys that can impact the game at certain times, or different tactics at different times. But I think impact players in every sport are hugely important, and you're dead right. You know, you see a guy like Divock Origi, who was, you know, probably looking at the Barcelona game out in the Nou Camp as, okay, this is my chance to get in here and do something. And next thing he's told, oh no, we're actually going to play Wijnaldum in a kind of defensive role, or play him off the front 2, or we're not going to play you. And next thing he's turning to him above a Newcastle needing a goal, and he gets him a goal, and then he gets the amazing goal to make it 4-0 at Anfield, and all of a sudden he's a hero, he's well known, he's stars after rising so much in the last number of weeks. But that's all well and good. If you're a sub, you got to have the mindset that you're going to be okay with it, and that you are going to come in and impact the game. If you're going to sulk and you're going to bitch and moan, I don't want you on my team anyway. And people have to understand these days that it is a squad, and whether you're number 15, 1 to 15, or you're number 15 to 21, or you're 21 to 30 on the squad, or even if you're outside that squad, your attitude dictates how your team is going to do this year. And you know, I think that's improving a lot now. I think teams are kind of realising that everybody is so important, and it's always mentioned about teams. If a team wins in All-Ireland, it isn't the 15 fellas that start. It isn't the 21 fellas that played in the day. it isn't even the 30 guys or the 26 guys got tagged out for the programme. It's probably the 35 guys that have been going hard at each other all year, testing each other's pulses, and Dave is every much a part to do with winning in All-Ireland than the guys in the field. And you can say that's cliche, but it's actually not. If that's the mindset you have, and if that's the mindset that your guys down the bench have, you're only going to be on a good team that's going to be successful. If your guys down the bench are bitching and moaning and don't want to be there and sulking and having a bad attitude and not bringing the effort to training, not putting it up to your starters, you're not going to win anything.
Kieran, our special guest this week is live all the way from down under. Mark O'Connor is obviously a name that Kerry football fans know really well, and there's a little pang of regret every time he's doing so well, because they know that he would be able to fill a role for the current Kerry team, no doubt. That like he'd be straight in there at midfield or wherever they need him, right? He's that good.
Yeah, he is that good. Like, you know, his underage career was amazing, and I think he was so good of an athlete that when I heard that when he was going down under first, I said, you know, I was worried, because I was like, this kid is a freak athlete. He's tall, he's strong, he can jump. He can run, he can kick the ball. He's a leader for every team that he's been on. You know, the Aussies aren't going to pass up on him, you know, and they're going to keep him. And yeah, we're seeing in the last number of weeks. And Indy and Lola Rose woke up one morning there at like 6 o'clock in the morning. It suited me fine. Geelong were playing, so I got to sit down and watch Mark's game, and he was amazing in it. So yeah, look, of course, you know, there's obvious regret from a Kerry fan and a Kerry player that we lose him, but there's complete understanding too that the guy is going making a living for himself playing a professional sport, and he's got every Kerry supporter's wishes. Yeah, we do look at him and kind of go, Jesus, we could do with him out in the middle of the field for Kerry right now to try and stop this Dublin 5 in a row. But you never know, stranger things have happened. There was times that players got brought back if their team got knocked out. It was a week Ty Kennelly came back from Australia, and it was before the 202 final, and Kerry didn't bring him in. Maybe Kerry should have brought him in for that final, Ger, because you see what Tyrone did with Stephen O'Neill in 2008 against us. He didn't play all year. He was sitting above in Tyrone on his couch every night, not doing anything with the team. Mickey Hart sees he's got Kerry to beat for the 3 in a row in 2008 and says, hey, Stephen, do you want to come off the couch for a few weeks and come in and train with us and make a difference? And lo and behold, Stephen O'Neill is on after 25 minutes, making a big difference in Tyrone and in the All-Ireland. So maybe Mark might be there yet, you never know.
Well, that's a good question to start us off with. Mark, good morning to you, or good evening to you where you are. Any chance of you parachuting back in for a semi-final, final Super 8 appearance?
Good morning, fellas, and thanks for having me on. But yeah, I'm not sure. There's a chance of that, especially having played in October. It didn't go down too well, so I'm not sure there's a chance of that anytime soon.
I think you got in trouble for coming back, Mark and me that time, Mark.
Just a small bit, yeah, just a small bit, sure, but no, all is good now, and all seems to be well, so it wasn't too bad.
Good, and you know, look, the season has gone so well for you so far. How are you finding it? Are you finding it that you really have your feet? Have you got a full feeling for the game now? It's like when I go from basketball into football or football into basketball, it always takes me a few weeks just to get my feel back. I know you've been down there 2 years now. Are you feeling like that you're in the game now? This Aussie Rules is a natural game that you've been playing it like since you were a kid, or do you still feel out of place at stages?
No, I feel very comfortable now, and that's the main difference between this year, I suppose, and the last and last year. Last year, I certainly didn't feel as confident as I do now, or as comfortable out in the field. But I certainly feel like I've gotten a good grasp of the game now, and yeah, things are going well.
And what's I like the goals? I know the goals of the Cats is obviously pretty high. You got a very good squad, but what's it like to be a part of the squad that's got so many superstars, Dangerfield? You know, these guys come. Like, how does it feel to be a part of a team that is going to be in the shake-up?
Yeah, it's great, and it's obviously an even greater challenge to get into a team like that and into a very good back line, but. No, it's fantastic, and it's funny. You have a perception, I suppose, when you come into a club or come into a professional environment that those guys be kind of snobby, or that they mightn't give you much, but they've certainly proved me wrong in that sense. And it's a very tight knit club over here, which is great. And we're kind of out on our own. We're about an hour out of Melbourne, and yeah, we're all just gelling nicely together. And hopefully, come the business end of the season, we'll be up there.
What's your job in the team, Mark? What after a game comes off, what stats are you looking at? What kind of feedback are you looking to see for your markers? I know obviously you'll know yourself whether or not you've played well kind of instinctively, but what are they talking to you about in terms of the specifics of your job?
Yeah, stats are actually regarded very highly over here, but I kind of never really had that. I'm more, I suppose, these days I'm probably going to their more dangerous forwards, and I'm trying to nullify their impact and then try and have an impact myself. But in terms of stats and that, I don't really look at the stats. I look at the vision, and I get feedback from our backs coach, Matthew Scarlett, and we have a good chat. Obviously, it is good to get involved in the attack, which was a bit of a focus for me this year. So sometimes disposals do come into it. But it's more the impact that I'd like to have with the number of disposals that I have rather than quantity of disposals.
Explain that, will you? When you say that, what do you mean by the number, the quality as opposed to the quantity?
Sorry, disposal is when you handball or kick, when you have the footy in your hands. So that is probably the most highly regarded stat over here in terms of media coverage and how they define how a player went, I suppose. But you can do different things with the footy, obviously, and if you give a handball that's 2 meters, or maybe if you break a couple of lines and kick it inside 50 to your teammate, that's obviously far more effective. So I try to have more quality possessions than quantity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Does it come naturally after a period of time, or do you still bring a bit of an outsider's viewpoint to this? Like it's a ball sport. It's played on a field that obviously is a bit different, but fairly similar in terms of the structure. And so a lot of it must feel fairly familiar. But at the same time, you also bring an outsider's view to things and kind of look at things a little bit differently. So habits that your teammates have built up, while generally it's going to give them an advantage, there's also that kind of slightly random thought pattern that you'll have as a Gaelic footballer, thinking, actually, why don't you try things this way? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely, but that can be an advantage too. You'd rather have a few people thinking outside the box rather than all 46 players thinking the exact same way as to how we should do things. But generally that hasn't really happened. I've obviously spend a lot of time at the club, so you generally tend to learn the way that we do want to play, and every now and then you can suggest a few things that might be helpful. But generally, it's more of a learning experience, and you do try and pick each other's brains as to the best way to go about things. But generally, we come up with the same kind of opinions and theories.
Mark, do you know the way, like, I know you're on about disposals there, and getting on the ball is seen as a big weapon in the game. I know when I played my first year, a guy called Ryan Crowley, he was known as one of the best taggers in Aussie rules, and he came into me before the game and shook hands with me and started pushing me in the chest, and I kind of threw out the line of, come on now, Ryan, we'll play a bit of football. And he said, I'm not even looking at the ball today, I'm looking between your eyes for the full game. And he kind of face guarded me. He tagged me, is what they call it out there. I know you're kind of a half-back role. Have you been given any jobs like where you just go and take somebody out of it for the game, or are you more a mark my man, but I'm going to influence myself on the game through going forward and forward ball and disposals, etc.?
Yeah, it's more like that. I certainly wouldn't enjoy it if I was there just to take someone out. So you took me out of it last year. Well, I thought I got a small bit involved anyway myself, but I just don't enjoy that kind of thing. But yeah, I was sent to you, but I hope I didn't. I hope I was watching the ball more than I was you. But you were galloping up the field. I was seeing your dust as you took off from me. Don't worry about it. How much does the likes of Ty Kennelly, having made it to kind of superstar level over there, even a guy that's right next to you, a great friend of mine that I played in a few international rules, says Zach Toohey, a wonderful guy. How much do them guys, having made it and then having Ty on the phone and Zach right next to you during every game, every training session, has that been a huge benefit? And will that be a role that you'll take on when other young kids are coming over here from Ireland? Yeah, well, I suppose they're even an inspiration by default, just having done what they've done. But obviously being in with Zach Toohey every day is great, because I can pick his brain and I can watch how he goes about things. And I've had a chat with him as well many times about his experience at a different club and changing clubs and the new environment and the way things are done. It's just all a great learning experience for me, and especially having him here. Just I think he has maybe 160 odd games played now, so that's obviously something I aspire to doing, and just seeing it before my eyes is obviously very beneficial for me.
Good, and I suppose we won't keep you too much longer, but this fan page and the love the fans have for you over in Geelong, I know they call you the Shark. Why do they call you Mark the Shark O'Connor?
Yeah, there's a bit of a random one. They love nicknames over here, but there was, after my first couple of games this year, there was a page made on Facebook called Mark the Shark O'Connor Appreciation Page, and I was pretty sure it was one of the backline, just having a joke, but it was actually one of the best mates of Tom Stewart, who's in the backline, so I was close enough. And I suppose shark rhymes with Mark, so that's probably where that came from.
All right, okay. So you're not the best swimmer in the team as well.
No, absolutely not. I'm like a brick in the water.
Oh yeah, all the dingle guys, Ger. This is a real Kerry thing. All the dingle guys, all the guys that live right next to the water, for some reason in Kerry, can't swim. You know the old fisherman's tale about the fishermen that can't swim. We pushed Mark. We pushed Mark's great clubman Tommy Griffin into a pool one time, and it was a big joke. Fellas were hiding behind the bush, and then when fellas were walking to the gym, someone ran out and pushed them into the pool, and Tommy went into the pool and just went down to the bottom and didn't come back up for like 10 or 15 seconds. So there was a few of us jumping in to bail out the guy that lives right on the water that couldn't swim. So I think anybody who starts swimming lessons in these coastal towns could be in for a big money racket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, how is the lifestyle out there? Because it's kind of it's a dream scenario where you're a full-time professional athlete, but also like Australia seems like a really nice place to live.
Yeah, it is, and in particular Geelong just kind of suited me down to the ground, because it's more like a big country town, and a lot of people know a lot of people around the place, which is kind of, in Dingle obviously everyone knows everyone, but it's not too dissimilar to that, and again it's only an hour away from the big smoke in Melbourne, so the lifestyle is good, and you obviously make friends fairly quickly here when you're spending every day with your teammates, and I had a whole family who I'm very close with now, and little by little then you just get to learn more about the place and more about the people, and yeah, the lifestyle is good. I'm just looking out the window here now, it's fairly dark at the minute. It's fairly wintry over here. I'd say it's about 10 degrees, but no, the lifestyle is very good now, in fairness.
Are you there for the long haul, do you think? Is that when you're talking about making the same number of appearances as Zach, that would suggest that like this is your career now and you're committed to it, and there's no sense of you kind of pining for a return to Kerry at any time soon?
Yeah, while I'm here, it's very easy to say that, but obviously having gone home in the off season, it wasn't easy to say that, and I was being pulled in both directions, I think, and even I was going through a bit of a tough time when deciding whether to stay and finish out with Dingle or to come back obviously for the pre-season. But as my uncle said to me, he said you can't serve two masters, and I suppose I had to zoom out of the situation I was in, and I obviously chose coming over here, but I suppose you can't really guarantee anything with this life either. Obviously it's very cutthroat. You have to keep performing, and I can't say that I will be here for the long run or that I won't. It's very hard to think long term, but I suppose at the minute I am pretty happy over here, and I'll see out my contract anyway.
I have one last question, Mark, sorry. When you were telling people in Kerry that you were interested, because obviously you'd had a load of trials with different teams, and so it looked fairly obvious that you were being, at least you were attractive to various teams in Australia and that you probably would end up going out there. Did anybody in the Kerry County Board make a significant effort to try and stop you? It looks like they've put measures in place recently to at least talk to people in advance. So David Clifford, they would have had a sit down with him and said, look, this is a career path, this is a future, this is what your football future looks like. Maybe you're the one that got away and that happened after you left, or did they do that with you as well?
Well, I actually didn't think I was going to... I knew I was coming out to Australia for trials and stuff, but I didn't actually think I was going to stay. I remember watching Kerry in Dublin. I think it was the semi-final. I was in the stands in 2016, and I had a very frustrating year with my knees, and I remember Kerry lost, but that's kind of where I saw my future lying at that time. Again, I suppose when you're in a certain environment, you that's where you see yourself. But I came over here and I just loved the place. And then the lifestyle again really appealed to me. But when I was there, I remember I actually had a conversation with Jack where he was telling me about, like, the Australia thing came up, and it was before I actually went out. And Jack was telling me that, you know, he'd love me to stay, and that he wondered if my knees would handle it, and all of this stuff. But I told him actually that I didn't really have much interest in going out to Australia, so he's happy with that. But having come back from Australia, then I was pretty hell-bent on going back. But in terms of the county board making an effort, I don't actually remember anything. I could be wrong there, but I certainly don't remember any measures in place. There was there? I don't think there was, to be honest, sir. Yeah, because we saw that brochure out last year, Kieran. There's now kind of a concerted effort whenever any of the best young players are being attracted by the opportunity to go to Australia, that Kerry have kind of put in place a programme to say, well, look, you should at least be aware of the opportunities you have here. Yeah, I actually saw that brochure. And sorry, Kieran, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
The brochure, and it was actually I was actually very happy with the idea that because people were lamenting the likes of Ty Kennelly and the people that were giving the opportunity to young fellas to come out, it was more giving out about Australia rather than maybe looking at the situation that was there and trying to improve that. So it was something that was put in place to try and make it more, I suppose, enticing to stay at home, and I just found that to be a very good idea and very good initiative. And just for something like that to be going ahead, and they're obviously really thinking about player welfare and trying to give players more opportunities and probably a better lifestyle, which was just, I just thought it was great, and it was a great start.
It wouldn't have changed your mind, though, it sounds like. It was the lifestyle and the opportunity to play professionally that had led you to make your decision anyway.
Yeah, it was. And I just felt like the knowledge that I could gain, the experience out of it. At the start, I just looked at it as a 2-year contract. And I knew about all the things that I could learn about. And I knew that I could study at the same time. It just seemed to be like just a great lifestyle, the best of both worlds. I could still stay studying, I could still play football full time, and then still have a bit of spare time in my hands. So yeah, that was probably the most enticing thing for me. Yeah, Kieran, that's it, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, that's 100%. Like I get where the county board are coming from when you lose a guy like Mark, and in 2009. We obviously lost Tommy Walsh, who was a huge player for us at that moment in time. He was on the seniors. He was, he was already a kind of superstar on a national level. And, but at the end of the day, as Mark just rightly pointed out, you're over there, you're doing college, you're playing professional football, you're in a wonderful climate, and you're getting paid. You're getting that check every month while you're studying.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, but we can do, in fairness to the county board, they're doing the best they can, and I think most county boards will obviously try and keep an up and coming superstar. But it's very simple. Like, it's almost as similar to me, Ger, here with the young superstars that are coming through and on the Tralee Warriors teams. We've got 3 guys on the under-18 national team. One guy's 6'9", the other fella was Rap Bovitis, who obviously was a huge player for us at the end of the season, and we've Dara Kennelly, and these guys, it's possible that they'll go to America to college. And, as much as I'd love to sell them the dream about being a Tralee Warrior and playing in front of huge crowds in the complex every Saturday night, you know, what's best for this young person in his life is probably go to America, get a free education, get a scholarship for 4 years, and yeah, then you can come back. And for Mark, he's out there, you know, like, you know, we were worried. I was worried about Mark when he at the start, because his knee was sore, and I was genuinely kind of going to firm ground, because I played over there when the ground is firm and it's reckless, and I was kind of saying, would his knee be okay? But thankfully his knee has come good, and he's playing great football, obviously. But he's doing his college, he's getting all his books up to date, and he's getting paid. So it's a pretty hard one. Look, they're all individual cases, and David Clifford had it was another case, and the county board did a good job meeting with him. But I think Dave's mind from the get-go was very kind of clued into being. I think there would have been a lot of talk about him when he was young to go be a Kerry player, and that was his ultimate goal, and that's what he put the hours of practice in, kicking the ball over the bar every night. So, but it's every fella's different, but it has to be every fella's own decision. You can't put it into either bracket and say, oh, well, we've got this thing now, it is what everybody's going to do. But it's Mark, delighted, man. Thanks so much for coming on, and good luck for the rest of the season. I'll be up with Lola Rose in Indy at 6 o'clock in the morning watching any games that are on BT Sports. So keep it going, man, and best luck for the rest of the season. And I'm kind of happy that you're out in Australia, so you don't have to be you wouldn't have to be marking me every time you come back home.
Oh, thanks very much, fellas, and again, congratulations, Kieran, on the basketball, and obviously Stacks winning the club championship.
Thanks, buddy. You're a good man. Thanks a million. Kieran, I think that's the whole point, is that go out there, have a good time. Like Kildare benefited from a bunch of players going away and coming back. The problem is that some of them get too good occasionally and they slip through the net and they end up having an amazing life out in Australia, and you got to be happy for them.
Yeah, the career Zach Tui has had out there is unbelievable, and he got a winning kick to win a game last year after the siren with all the pressure on them. And I saw a live game of Mark 2 weeks ago, but last week I saw a clip from, you probably saw it, going back defending, sprinting back, 6'4", using his athleticism, getting the ball, turning around, taking a bounce, and then pinging a 50-yard boot with his left leg, kicking an oval ball right to a fella's chest. We saw Tig and Zach both take all the restarts for their teams from the goal square. So the Irish guys, you're right, you made a point earlier on that these guys are coming back, they're coming in, they have no bad habits, they have no flaws, they're taught how to kick the ball properly, and then they get really good at it. Yeah. And obviously, you know, that's a role we could probably see Mark doing as well, because he was a fantastic kicker of a Gaelic football. So it's like riding a bike for these guys. So yeah, that was a good show. I enjoyed that, Jar. Yeah,
it was great. Good stuff, Kieran. We'll see you next week. Thanks a million.
Okay, buddy, I'll talk to you next week.
Shot clock is in the books for this week as well. So Offaly manager John Mohan was on last night's show, ahead of the weekend. The championship is upon us properly. Here he is talking about how happy he is with his team's progression. Have a look.
The group that are there, what's your sense of what's their motivation to be an Offaly inter-county player? Is it simply that, the pride of pulling on the jersey for your county? Because let's be honest, the chances of winning some silverware, unless it is a league title at some stage, you know, it's just not going to happen.
I think you've nailed it there in one, Nathan. It is the pride and the pleasure of stretching yourself, the liberation of ego, the chance of going out and proving that yourself that you can play at this level, and you know, the pride in the Offaly jersey. And some guys have, as you rightly said, have maybe walked away from that, and they couldn't give the commitment, and I respect that. Like, it's a different society, it changes society. A lot of lads, as you say, who have the chance maybe of travelling abroad. Young guys are different than my time when I was playing football. And but those that have committed are really, really committed. They're fantastic, I have to say, every single one of them. As a group, there's no question they have improved as footballers in the past year, because I've a couple of fantastic lads who work with me. Mark Field down from Dublin, he's a great football coach. Dermot Shergan from Cavan, top-class guy, strength and conditioning coach, and he's well recognised. And I have a couple of lads, the local lads. Jerry O'Malley from my home club across from Leinster is living up in Forban, married to Sean Lowry's daughter. The lineage is good there, but he's won an All-Ireland club medal across from Leinster and has a great knowledge in Kevin Gain. So we have a great backroom team, and we're getting a great buy-in from those guys who are there. Of course, we'd love if those lads that didn't commit had committed, but for a combination of reasons, some of them travel abroad, others were doing studying one thing or another. But it is what it is. Look, it's tough. Down Division 3 has been tough. We managed just about to survive. That was a very, very competitive league. It's going to be even more competitive next year with Tipperary and Cork and an improving Leitrim and Derry obviously thrown into the Division 3 next year. So I flagged it there this week when I was asked at the Leinster Championship launch. is there time for a two-tier championship? I would say it definitely is.
So the more championship analysis and reaction available for you on offtheball.com. That full John Maughan interview is, of course, on our YouTube channel as well. BMW and Triathlon Ireland are challenging the OTB team to hashtag Try for Pieta this summer and raise funds for Pieta House. BMW is the proud partner of Triathlon Ireland and is title sponsor of the BMW Triathlon National Series, 17 of the most exciting triathlon races in Ireland. Doing a triathlon turns out is easier than you think. People of all ages and abilities take part. All ages and abilities are taking part. Triathlon as a sport gives people a sense of achievement and has a positive impact on all areas of participants' lives. For more information, check out triathlonireland.com. You'll see the link for more info on hashtag tryforpieta.ie. Myself and Eoin, it was announced last night, are taking part in the one in Dunmore East.
Mm-hmm.
What leg?
Cycling.
Yeah,
we're going up against one another. It's going to be...
Team A and Team B.
It's going to be kind of like Froome against Dan Martin, really. It's my first step towards Alpe d'Huez really this summer.
This is the only time that I have any sympathy for Lance Armstrong. I may be buying some EPO on the internet as we speak. Do they test?
I'm pumped to the gills already. I wanted to go outside last night, and cycle my bike and train, and then I got outside and I was like, I don't have a bike. So that's a big issue when it comes to training. Well, I would like to state, I do not have a bike, if anybody has one.
We do need to borrow some bikes.
Can you do that? Can you, like, of course you can rent like one of those Coca-Cola bikes for like 40 minutes. Can you like rent a racer for 2 weeks?
You get it done in 40 minutes because you get charged after a certain amount of time.
You do.
Can you bring it all the way down to Waterford as well?
It's Waterford, so it'd be a couple of days worth of.
What is it? 10k you have to cycle.
20k.
Yeah.
That's a sore ass. Your saddle's not right. That's all I'm thinking of.
Well,
it's also the cardiac issues of like not having cycled 20 kilometres ever.
I'm just thinking the ultimate glory, to be quite honest.
You can just rock up to this, can't you? You can. Do we have to do any training?
I think the cycling would probably be the easier of the three. The swimming is the tough.
The swim is the.
I wouldn't imagine you've had many volunteers for
just remember, you're in a floating tube, basically. The buoyancy aid that you get from your suit these days, which keeps you warm, and you can put a cap over you and everything, so you'll be nice and warm. And it's basically this kind of floating tube in the sea, which is like you can't sink in. It's not that hard. You basically have to paddle like a dog
and avoid getting hit by arms and legs.
You can wait, definitely. I would definitely be like, off you go, like, well, no. This isn't really competition. It's like
you get stuck at sea. I got stuck at sea once. It was on
floating.
I was on a bodyboard, and the currents took me out, and I was like, this is my life now. I'm Tom Hanks in Castaway. And eventually I just waited a while, and the current kind of calmed down a little bit. Just paddled as hard as I could to the side, found some rocks, made my way back to safety.
Right. Where was this?
It was down in Kerry near my grandmother's house, St. Finian's Bay. Shout out to the currents down there. That was terrifying.
So Phil, I noticed you didn't volunteer for this.
I wasn't actually.
Why do you hate charity so much?
I could do the run.
The run has been taken by Nathan and... Oh no,
TBC.
We need a runner. Hey, Phil, come on down.
Nathan mentioned something to me about it yesterday, but I was in a hurry running somewhere.
Avoiding answering.
No, I've done. I used to live in Athlone, so the triathlon was a big thing. I was actually there the year that the European Championships were on. I was working at it. I got to see the Brownlees running. It was unbelievable.
Pretty intense.
Now, afterwards, I saw them in the bar and I said, I know their weakness. They can't drink.
Right.
But the speed that Alistair Brownlee did the run, which was, obviously Olympic, so 10k, and he's sprinting around the streets of Athlone.
Yeah.
And he's just after doing a 40k cycle.
Yeah.
And a mile swim. I was just, wow.
The mile swim, it's 750 metres in this one, so I mean, while I'm dissing the lads, 750 metres is quite a far swim. Do we have to wait for them to finish? Is that how it works?
I presume so, yeah.
It is.
I can't just go, I'm not waiting for you.
So
the triathlon's on Saturday, we'll probably get on our bike come Sunday.
So whose team should I be on then if I have to wait? Because I have to wait for, obviously someone's got to do the swim and then...
Show and him. Is the run last? It is.
The run is last.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So no matter how bad I am, I'll still be able to blame whoever the runner is.
Yes, totally, and that is my intention as well for ruining our.
So it would be me up against Nathan, would it?
Yeah. I'd fancy
hunting him down.
You'd fancy your chances with that, wouldn't you?
Like in Terminator 2. Running after him.
Full disclosure, I did manage to beat Nathan in we did a goal mile one Christmas, and I mean, if you can't beat them and I can beat them, then something's gone. You've been injured somewhere along the way, or someone's shot you.
I think Nathan is that kid who secretly studies for an exam. I think he's been
he's been doing
working away at this. Yeah.
But we'll see. All right.
Okay. Obviously, only one place to start. All Premier League, Champions League final. Looked fairly unlikely at around 5 to 8 on Tuesday night, but it's the first since 2008. Liverpool obviously overturned the 3-0 deficit against Barcelona. Tottenham did the same in Amsterdam last night and scored 3 goals in the second half when they were 3-0 down on aggregate. Obviously, not the best start when Matthias de Ligt headed home after 5 minutes. 2-0 when Hakim Ziyech made it or found the net in the 34th minute. But Mauricio Pochettino brought on Fernando Llorente, and that was the game changer, really. They went a bit more direct. He caused plenty of problems, especially for de Ligt and Daley Blind. But it was all about Lucas Moura. Second half hat-trick, the winning goal coming in the 95th minute at the Johan Cruijff ArenA. The majority of the fans, there's that great video where you can hear the reaction of the Ajax fans stunned into silence. So Spurs into their first Champions League final. It's going to take place on the 1st of June in Madrid. It could be nigh on impossible to get a ticket there. It's going to be pretty hard to get there, but I'm sure there is.
It's actually not that well.
Use your imagination, you can get there.
Yeah. Someone's saying if you got time to travel the train to Barcelona and then fly up, or
even fly into certain cities and get the train.
Sure. Yeah, train's like 150 quid, I think, return.
Yeah, bit of driving as well.
Barcelona,
right?
It's expensive enough as well, I think. Like that is definitely the way to do it. You're definitely save rather than paying like $1,500 for a flight.
Yeah, but last year was Moscow, right? Or was it Kiev?
Yeah.
Impossible to get to, really expensive. So whoever was willing to pay the couple of grand it took to get there last year, you'll totally be able to spend that this year if that's what you're doing. It's once in a lifetime.
Absolutely.
We're going to win it, right? Isn't that now? The Liverpool fans are like, we've got this.
Oh, I don't know. Like you look at Harry Kane running onto the pitch, you think that ankle looks all right for 3 weeks' time, but would you start him?
No, I wouldn't start him.
Do you hold him for extra time and penalties when it goes into extra time and penalties because it's one of the dullest finals ever?
It won't be dull. I don't think it's going to be dull. There'll be mistakes, no?
So it's Kane off the bench versus Xherdan Shaqiri off the bench. I'm fancying Spurs and
maybe Origi. Origi needs to complete that final chapter for the Divock Origi DVD that I was talking about yesterday. We can hear from Lucas Moura now, the match winner, who was quite emotional after the game, and no surprise, he's ranked it as the best night of his career.
Of course, it's the greatest day in my career. 3 goals in the semi-final of Champions League is unbelievable. The most emotional day.
Mauricio Pochettino was in tears on the pitch after the game when he celebrated with his players, and you'd have to feel for Ajax. They beat Real Madrid, they beat Juventus. They started their campaign on the 25th of July when they played in the second qualifying round against Sturm Graz. Dusan Tadic brought the ball into the corner in injury time, and you thought they're going to see this one out, but Spurs got one chance, and after Vertonghen had hit the crossbar, Pochettino says it was a magical night for his side.
I think it's one of the most important night in my life. How finished the game, all that happened, everything was amazing. I think the most important that what I want to say is congratulate my player. They own the football.
Surely the Europa League can't top what we've seen in the last 2 nights.
It definitely can't. Even if it was like a 12-all draw with 4 sendings off, I'd still be like, nah.
It's still the Europa League.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, actually, both games are on at the same time, but Chelsea and Arsenal are in the driving seat to book an all-English.
Arsenal are never in a driving seat, Phil.
Europa League final. I've got some stats which will put your mind at ease, Owen, right? So Arsenal 3-1 up going into the second leg in Valencia. 5 of the previous 28 teams to lose the first leg of a UEFA Cup or Europa League semi-final by 2 goals or more have ended up progressing. So the odds are stacked in Arsenal's favour there. 23 of the 28.
Arsenal have a habit of breaking these ridiculous records.
I think that is going to be the game to watch. But 1-1 between Chelsea and Eintracht Frankfurt ahead of their second leg at Stamford Bridge. No N'Golo Kante for Chelsea because of a hamstring injury. All 4 of the previous teams to draw the first leg of a Europa League semi-final away from home have gone on to the final. Chelsea, however, have been eliminated on 3 of the last 4 occasions they've drawn the first leg of a European knockout tie away from home. So something's got to give with all those stats that I gave you there. And those games kick off at 8 o'clock. At 7 o'clock then in Tala, the Republic of Ireland take on Belgium in their final group game at the European Under-17 Championships. Colin O'Brien side have drawn both games so far. If they win, they're guaranteed a place in the quarterfinals. A draw might be enough, depending on how the Greece and Czech Republic game goes. That one is in Bray, also at 7 o'clock. Doesn't look like there's going to be much play in Malahide for the Tri-Series one-day international meeting between Ireland and Bangladesh, due to get underway at 10:45. But it's been raining all morning. There's rain forecast for the afternoon. It's unlikely Rory McIlroy is going to do a U-turn on his decision not to play in the Dubai Duty-Free Irish Open, because he has signed up for the European Tour, but it's unlikely he's going to play in the event, which starts on the 4th of July. And Paul Dunne, Michael Hoey and Gavin Moynihan are all in action later at the British Masters in Southport. Dunne won the event in 2017. Spain's Gonzalo Fernandez Castagna is among the early leaders on 2 under. And Pádraig Harrington and Seamus Power will tee it up later on at the Byron Nelson in Texas on the PGA Tour.
All right, Phil, good stuff. Thanks for that. It is time for our power rankings.
Very quickly, let's run through what we've already seen in the GAA Power Rankings so far. At the top, we've got New York at the bottom, bringing us right away through to Leitrim in at number 25. And on page 2, our second edition of this saw us go from Offaly right way through until Cork at number 17. And number 16, kicking off this edition, is Westmeath. Of course, they're Division 3 champions. They are Oberon Cup champions, as Adrian Barry likes to remind us. They are the only team on for a quadruple this year. At 15, we've got Clare. They beat both Tip and Cork in the league this year. They avoided relegation down to Division 3. A strong argument to be made that they are Munster's second best team at this point, really. At 14 then, we've got Laois. Back-to-back promotions for them now after heading back up to Division 2 after this year's league campaign. Leinster final place for them last year, capped off a very, very good summer for them. In at number 13 then, it's one of the enigmas of the Football Championship. It is Armagh. You wouldn't be awfully surprised to see them make the Super 8s this year, because they're on the opposite side of the draw in Ulster to Donegal and Tyrone. They got knocked out last year in one of the games of the season against Roscommon, you might remember, in Portlaoise.
How many Ulster Championship games has Kieran McGeady won as the Armagh manager?
0.
So I'd be pretty surprised to see them make the Super 8s through the beaten Ulster finalist route.
Is this the best Armagh team that Kieran McGeady has had as Armagh manager? 2 years ago was fairly strong when they got to Croke Park, when they got to the quarterfinals, despite getting absolutely destroyed by Tyrone. I think that there is a certain cohort of players that are a bit more experienced this year. Jamie Clark perhaps re-energised this year.
Yeah, look, I actually, if they are going to make it, I think they'll make it to the back door as opposed to through the front door.
Well, we'll see. I wouldn't be awfully surprised to see them put together. Okay, I would be surprised to see them make the Ulster final, but they're definitely a left field choice to be finalists there. At number 12 then, we've got your boys Kildare, another great enigma of Gaelic football. Managed to get beaten soundly by Carlow last summer, but beat Mayo in a brilliant qualifier run. Daniel Flynn is missing though, which means getting higher than 12 is actually going to be a pretty big achievement for them this year. At 11 then, we've got Cavan. Division 1 experience this year. They did lose every game except for one when they beat Roscommon by 9 points in round 4. Quality in a lot of areas of the pitch, but yet to prove themselves against big opposition in recent years in the Championship. So that is their big challenge, to take a scalp. And then the final two teams for this edition. At number 10, we've got Fermanagh. Best defensive record across all 4 divisions in the Allianz Leagues this year. They're easy to watch. They're not easy to watch, I should say, but they are very, very hard to beat, is the line thrown about around Fermanagh. And then at number 9, we've got Meath, finished top of the table in Division 2, despite losing that league final to Donegal. Did that league final show the ceiling for this Meath team, that they're not going to be able to take off a potential Super 8 team? I'm not so sure. I think a Super 8 appearance for Meath this year is about just an above realistic expectation for Meath fans this summer.
Yeah, they should be aiming for that, all right, because they're going to be in the Leinster final more than likely, right?
You would think so, yeah.
So, hang on, why are Fermanagh 10th?
But, as opposed to Meath? Or what? Because they're the 10th best team in the country, in my opinion.
On the basis of the league form, as opposed to...
Made an Ulster final last year?
Yeah, I mean...
Well, you just castigated Kieran McGeeney's Armagh team for having a poor Ulster record.
There was like a fluky one-off win against Monaghan in that, right?
I think you're judging Fermanagh on their style of play here, Ger. If we're going on style of play, Fermanagh would probably be 33rd. Or in terms of enjoying a team to watch, they'd be in and around the 30 mark. We're talking about the effectiveness of a team. Would they be favourites going in against the teams ranked 11, 12, 13?
Kildare, would they be favourites against Kildare?
This year, I think they might be without Daniel Flynn, yes.
Kildare 320, Fermanagh 18 points was the last time they played in the Championship?
Last year,
yeah.
in round 4.
Yeah.
But like, you can also gauge a lot into Division 2.
12 point turnaround.
They came a lot closer to promotion this year than Kildare did. I think they've leapfrogged them in the standings this year, Ger.
League is league.
League is league.
That's all I'll say about
that. But league is also the only competition with which we can gauge teams on an equal footing with one another, as opposed to the championship, which is completely and utterly ridiculous, especially this time of year.
Except last year's championship game when the two teams played.
Was that the game Arlene Foster was that?
No, you mean Arlene Foster was at the Ulster final.
Yeah. How did they get on the Ulster final?
They weren't great. I'm not going to deny that, but they got beaten by a team that are ranked higher than them. I accept your Kildare arguments, and I accept that that it's not a kind of a definite thing here.
I accept that you're a troll. That's fine. It's a very accepting studio we're in at the moment. Right, let's move on. Here's James Ryan speaking ahead of the Champions Cup final. We're going to talk rugby with Neil after these.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've had a pretty steady progression since the Ulster game. I think we looked more cohesive and more of a unit against Toulouse. So hopefully that curve can keep going upward, because we're well aware that it's going to need a season's best performance this weekend. Saracens are a different beast to Toulouse. They're the only unbeaten team left in Europe. Defensively so strong, so we're going to need to crank it up a few notches this week. But alongside that, the focus this week will be, keep working on our strengths. What makes us good. Hopefully, we can go out there on the weekend and play Leinster rugby. Everybody's got to be comfortable on the wall and be willing to express himself. That's what we're going to look to do.
It's James Ryan. It's going to be a big battle that he's involved in. I told you there's going to be big battles all around the pitch on Saturday evening in Newcastle. What's going to happen?
I can't call it. I think it's split absolutely 50-50 down the middle at the moment. Gun to my head, I might just about be edging towards Saracens, but it's tiny, tiny margins there.
Part of me feels like the team who isn't the defending champions has that little bit extra to motivate and to come. It's an aggressive position that they can adopt, as opposed to it's mad because it's a cup final. You shouldn't be defending anything. Leinster aren't defending anything, but they are the defending champions, and that Saracens obviously had been the champions before that. So I make Saracens slight favourites. I think that's just a natural.
Yeah, just about. I think. Yeah, like going back even to the quarter final last year when Leinster did an absolute job on Saracens. I think it was Rob Kearney after the semi-final against Toulouse recently. A couple of Leinster players made a point of actually saying, we've heard the Saracens players reference that game quite a lot. So it's definitely something that among the Saracens players is sticking in their craw a little bit about just how poor they were against Leinster that day and how much of a lesson Leinster showed them. So there's definitely an element of revenge in there as well from where Saracens are concerned.
What happened in that game? What can you just remind us?
Saracens, they just went on quite a poor run last year. Scraped their way through into they went on a run, I think it was around December and January. They lost, I think it was 6-7 games in a row maybe in all competitions. Just really hit a bad run of form and were kind of playing catch up for the rest of the season. Granted, they did go on and win the Premiership in the end, but when they played Leinster, Leinster, they were coming off the back of all those Ireland players winning a Grand Slam. They'd been absolutely perfect during the pool stages, and Saracens travelling over to Dublin, they just caught Leinster at a very, very bad time for themselves and just let themselves down, really.
Do we read anything into how the game played out, or do you just put that down to... So remember, Leinster coming off the back of the Grand Slam, but the Leinster players, this is the year after the Lions, am I right? So
yes.
It's the summer after...
Yeah.
So basically Saracens players, those who went on the Lions tour, played straight through up to that point and then hit the mid-season blip. Who knew that playing loads of games in
incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Traditional sport like rugby is going to damage you for the middle of the season. I don't know. That's kind of where I would have that, as opposed to we did this very well that day, we can replicate that, or Saracens can look at what Leinster did to them and counteract.
Yeah, I think like Saracens just had an awful day that day, and Leinster were absolutely phenomenal in that second half of the season, in particular last year. I think looking at this season, for most of the competition, in my head, I would have been thinking Saracens are looking like the team to beat the whole way here. After the semi-final against Munster, I really think Saracens have the better of whoever comes through the Leinster and Toulouse semi-final. Leinster were very good in that semi-final though, and I kind of started to go, ooh, actually, they're looking sharp again. A lot of the big international players for Leinster really showed up. James Lowe was amazing, and it kind of narrowed the gap in my mind. I think maybe Saracens just about have an edge, though. I wouldn't be shocked. I think a good value might be draw.
20-1.
Yeah.
When they talk about this game as potential game of the decade, are they referring to what you say there? It's such a close one to call and they're two excellent teams, or is there something that we're going to see stylistically here that is going to make it very, very entertaining from a neutral perspective?
I actually think from a neutral perspective it mightn't be the best game of rugby ever. Like it's enormous. It's one of the biggest ever in terms of the size of it, the quality of the two teams. It's probably, if you're looking at the quality of the two teams, it probably is the most evenly matched and the best final we have had for a number of years. But I think that both sides are so professional, they're so smart about the way they go about things, they analyse the opposition so well. I think there could be a lot of cancelling each other out on the day.
The way there was for last year's final. Last year's final was a terrible game.
It was a poor game, yeah.
I mean, Leinster fans didn't care a jot about that, but it was like...
Racing had the perfect game plan on the day and just shut Leinster down, and in the end Leinster did just about enough to get over the line. I'm sure they'd take it again this Saturday in Newcastle, but yeah, I think it could be a low scoring game.
There's also to take into account that some key players will go down injured. Racing lost their out half at the start of the game, and then their backup out half was also... So Dan Carter wasn't available, and then the out half got injured 2 or 3 minutes in, and then so they had to... And still put Leinster to the absolute pin of their collar to win that game. These are kind of some things that you forget in the aftermath of it, that Leinster were relatively lucky with injuries in last season's competition.
Yeah, and they haven't been this season. The only luck they've had maybe is that someone like Sean O'Brien has come back to better fitness and looked like his old self again against Toulouse. What really struck me though from Saracens' point of view in the Munster game was early in the second half you have two people like Vincent Koch and Will Skelton coming off the bench, and just as you were thinking Munster have a bit of a job on their hands, but they might, there is an opening here, they're not completely out of it. You see two lads like that coming off the bench, and all of a sudden when you were watching on TV you were just going, oh God, that's the reality of what Saracens can bring off the bench and the depth they have.
Yeah, I guess the other reason that it's the game of the decade is that it'll decide who's the most storied franchise over the course of the decade. Obviously, I think Toulon did win 3 in this decade, and I think this would be Leinster's 4th.
This would be Leinster's... Oh, in this decade?
Yeah.
In this decade, it would be Leinster's 4th. It'd be their 5th overall. Saracens won 16-17. Leinster win 18.
Whereas if Saracens win, it'd be 3 Saracens, 3
out of 4 for Saracens. If Saracens
3 for Toulon and 3 for Leinster in this decade. Yeah. So it's kind of like, then you... I mean, obviously, we all know Tyrone were the best team of the decade last year.
You just love slipping that absolute piece of nonsense in out of nowhere. It's like a pointless piece of dynamite.
It always works.
There's no such thing as a pointless piece of dynamite.
Never believe Jur's take on any team of the decade, because he patently gets it wrong time after time after time. The great thing is, if Leinster win this weekend, we can remove this stupid debate about teams of the decade, and we can accept that Leinster are the team of the decade, much like Kerry were the team of the decade in GAA last decade, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, but it's clearly worked, because you're getting quite irate about it now and quite agitated.
Well, I'm not getting agitated. Let's just say I'm personally offended, and all my family are offended by that statement.
In terms of any stylistic issues, game plans that one team sets up, manages to... You're looking at it going, actually, I can see that there's something that Leinster do, a pattern of play that they repeat that will weaken Saracens or that will benefit them against Saracens? Or is this just about ultimately standing up and having a good fight?
Yeah, I think it's going to be about standing up and having a good fight. I think there's going to be so much thought put into it. Saracens are going to analyse Leinster down to the nth degree. You would have seen it against Munster, like, in terms of the way they handle that game. They didn't just go out there like they did against Glasgow and kind of decide, we know we're the better team here, we can just brush aside these guys and run in tries, even though they conceded an early try against Glasgow. Against Munster, they had seen what Edinburgh hadn't done at Murrayfield, and that was take their points in the first half and trust your side to actually go out there and get a try in the second half and put some points on the board early on. It's what they did against Munster. Took their penalties, just kept them at arm's length, knowing full well that when the chances came in the second half they'd be able to take them. And I'd expect them to kind of approach the game against Leinster quite similar. And I'd kind of be expecting Leinster to go about it exactly the same way.
All right, so you're edging towards Saracens at this point?
Just about.
I've got to ask you about what's going on at Munster. The news came through that the backroom team is going to be a completely different backroom team next year, and the Munster statement seemed to suggest that they were disappointed that the new contracts that they'd offered Flannery and Felix Jones hadn't been accepted. Felix Jones was clearly getting some kind of a demotion, it looked like, when they were talking about bringing in
An attack coach.
Yeah, and Rob Howley had been linked with that role, so maybe he was unhappy about that. You don't know. Like, Flannery has obviously got a really good reputation from the work that he's done there, and it seemed like he was in the perfect role for him, so it just doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah, I think the Flannery one more so than anything, because I think he was someone in the last 3 or 4 years had come on leaps and bounds as a coach as well. I thought the lineup maybe was a problem for Munster at times, but from the scrum point of view, I thought they've been very, very good for the last 2-3 years in particular. And, there hadn't been any inkling that, they were bringing in maybe a more experienced forwards coach over Flannery's head or anything like that. So it's very puzzling, and it's very worrying, I'd say, for Munster fans to see 2 players that had, Felix Jones was an import from Leinster, but he had very, very much become part of Munster down the years, and had seamlessly gone in and
had a really good
coach.
reputation. Anything you heard now, in fairness, like, how much can you...
Well, there was talk as well, Rassie Erasmus wanted to bring Felix Jones to South Africa with him.
Yeah.
At the time as well, so...
Do Munster need to look into what Leinster are doing right now and just split it back up in terms of separating director of rugby from head coach?
Yeah, there was, it's what they would have done when Anthony Foley was still there. They had brought Rassie Erasmus in initially as a director of rugby. And
kind of fallen back into this structure almost.
Yeah, but I think they were generally happy with the way it was working with Johan van Graan, that he was essentially able to fulfil both roles.
When there was that period where Leinster had the first season under Leo Cullen and had shipped some record defeats, which kind of gets blank from memory now. They did bring in Graham Henry for a short period of time just to kind of have a look around and see what was going on. And it was soon enough after that they ended up finding Stuart Lancaster and adding him to the backroom team. And since then, the coaches who have been under Stuart Lancaster have all ended up getting jobs and being promoted. So Gervin Dempsey's gone over to England, and Fogarty's ended up back with the Ireland camp as scrum coach. So, like, a little bit of outside influence kind of coming in and saying, this is how you're doing things, this is how your setup is, that's really good, that's really good. This bit over here needs a bit of help. What do you think about this? Just like a short term... Cause,
the thing is that, like, they kind of tapped into that a little bit, and it's not the same way as bringing in a consultant of Graham Henry's level. Like, it was Munster's idea, right, to send Flannery and Felix down to New Zealand last summer, wasn't it, to get them kind of immersed in a different rugby culture. Like, I thought that was a really good idea, but that also shows that Munster saw these 2 guys as projects, that they saw them there for the long term. So when we talk about
what the hell happened,
exactly, when we talk about, like, whose end the satisfaction may have been on, I don't think it was on Munster Rugby's side. Like, there's something strange here, and it seems that with Flannery and Jones both doing this.
And what did the 2 lads feel that they had to walk away at this point? Like, did they feel like they were shouldering the blame for what was going on? Has the head coach managed somehow not to be responsible for what's going on? Like, what has happened? I think there's definitely stuff to come out about this that all's not well.
Yeah, there's so many question marks, I think, as well, because this was Johan van Graan's first full season in charge. Maybe he had decided himself, maybe he wanted to bring in some more experienced heads, have the likes of Flannery and Felix Jones working as an assistant attack coach or an assistant forwards coach, or maybe just put Flannery specifically maybe onto scrummaging duties and have a general forwards coach taking care of the line out and the general play as well.
Mad timing as well. Mad timing.
Awful timing.
Or the best Munster timing, where suddenly it's like this mad performance of mayhem and chaos that they just tear into Leinster, who'll be softened up, whatever happens.
Papering over the cracks, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Irrespective of whether or not it's papering over the cracks, they could win the league. And Johan van Graan's at the end of the season, we won the league, despite all this stuff going on here.
But then they have an entire new summer now to have to get used to new coaches all over again. It's just Van Graan and JP Ferreira, who've really only been with the squad for, Ferreira's only been there a year or so, I think, is it, and Van Graan 18 months.
Yeah, like, you think about the highest level of coaches they can get, a lot of them that would be in their mind would be involved with Rugby World Cup squads.
And that's fine. So you don't rush a decision now for the summer and the pre-season if you're going to get a world-class coach in October. You don't.
But it's still October. It's still a bit into the season. There are no plans in place.
Yeah, there are going to be games there during the World Cup.
Yeah, and you don't have the time to implement your whole thing.
The full pre-season.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you think back, if there was a Lancaster type person available in October, or there's like a second tier coach available now, which one are you going to do? You're going to wait for the great coach, aren't you? I think for the long-term future.
You got to patience is always the best idea.
Yeah, I think Munster fans have to be prepared maybe for a lot of difficulty next season, a lot of teething problems, because for the first few months of the campaign at least, Conor Murray, Peter O'Mahony, Keith Earls probably all going to be away on World Cup duty, barring injury if they're not selected. And, a new forwards coach or a new attack coach are going to have to be dealing with, they're going to have to be getting used to the squad without the core of the team.
Yeah. All right, we've got to move on. Thanks for that, Neil. 20 by 20 is the project that's ongoing at the moment to raise the profile of women's sport, to increase participation, media coverage and attendance at women's sport by 20% by the start of 2020. That's obviously next year. And it's also about creating a cultural shift in our perception of girls and women in sport. By increasing visibility of women's sport, it will become a greater part of who we are and what we follow. So the initiative seeks to change the subliminal bias in the Irish psyche that exists around girls and boys, or women and men, when it comes to sport. The very latest chapter of the 20 by 20 campaign focuses on the issue of role models. You can get involved by saying who got you into sport and why you're thanking them using the hashtag #Can'tSee.Can't.Be. It's launching today, and we're celebrating the role models of today so that we can be the role models of tomorrow. And we're going to play you this video now, and then after that, on the far side, we're going to talk some NBA with Ryan Jones after the Golden State Warriors beat the Houston Rockets very early this morning, around about 6:30 before that game actually finished. So we're going to play you this video, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 7:45.
Okay, so just before we came on air this morning, it finished over in California, 104-99 in the favour of Golden State Warriors. It was Game 5 of the Western Conference semi-finals, probably the biggest game of the season, and they now take a 3-2 lead going into Houston for Game 6. I'm delighted to say that Ryan Farmer-Jones, friend of the show, is with us on the line this morning. Good morning to you, Ryan.
Morning, Eoin. How are you?
I'm very well. There's a number of interesting storylines from this game this morning. You can talk about the way Golden State closed out this game, but the narrative around how they closed out this game is hammered down by the fact that they were without Kevin Durant for pretty much the entire fourth quarter.
Right, yeah. Durant gets injured there. I think it was right at the end of the third quarter. It looked like an Achilles injury at first, and everybody was, sort of terrified, whether you're a fan or not. You hate to see a guy have an injury potentially that serious. It turns out it looks just like a calf strain, which certainly could cost him a game or two here, but obviously nothing that's going to, end his season or shouldn't extend any beyond that. But yeah, he's been their best player. As good as Steph Curry is, Durant's been the guy for this team, really. And to see him go out, you sort of wondered how the Warriors would respond. And then you remember, well, they've basically got all the guys who won 73 games a couple years ago, so they're not too scant otherwise. So. They played well down the stretch. Houston also, and Curry, to his credit, Curry stepped up. I think he had 14 in the fourth, something like that. But the Rockets kind of kept shooting themselves in the foot down the stretch, had some turnovers and fouls and kind of silly mistakes that, they seem a bit snake bit against these Warriors the last couple of years. They seem to have them on the ropes and be in a position where maybe they'll finally knock them off, and then they find a way to blow it. It felt a little bit like that at the end tonight.
Yeah, it's very simplistic to say, I guess, that Steph Curry plays better when Kevin Durant is off the court, because you just look at the statistics, he scored more in the fourth quarter. Is it too simplistic, though? Is it a situation where Steph Curry, of old, the 73-game winning regular season, Steph Curry kind of steps up a little bit more, or is at least a little bit more present when Durant is off the court? And I'm not suggesting that they're a better team. I'm just talking about Steph Curry here as an individual.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with how they play, how they played before Durant and since. I mean, clearly they're better. Anytime you ask player of Durant's caliber, you can only help but be a better team. But I think Curry is freer to sort of do what he does best, which is just, work to find open spaces. And he's allowed to, I think, be a little more aggressive. And he seems to almost have more confidence when he's out there kind of as the focal point in a way. I think you have to give him a lot of credit for how he's sort of deferred to Durant. There have been times where his numbers have suffered, whether that's fewer opportunities or less confidence or something. But he seems very comfortable when Durant's not out there. And I think you saw that glimpse tonight. And again, this is that core, him and Thompson and Iguodala, that Draymond Green, obviously, that's the core that set that NBA record a couple years ago before Durant got there. So that group is still very capable of putting up great numbers and beating anybody, even if Durant's not on the court.
Have we seen kind of a look into the future in terms of next season a little bit with the end of that game last night? I mean, Kevin Durant obviously being linked with a move away from Golden State Warriors. You talk about kind of, I don't know, for me looking at that, it was kind of like the good old days seeing all of them play together without Kevin Durant on the court, which I completely accept is a really harsh view on it because Kevin Durant is one of the best players we've seen in this generation. Right. But I do wonder if it's just a sense of what we might be seeing next season. Like, I'm not sure what your view is on the Kevin Durant moving away from Golden State Warriors situation is.
It does feel almost inevitable at this point, which is crazy to say because they absolutely could win it again this year. And if they could keep them together, it's not crazy to think that they might win another, one or two championships with this group. But there just seems to be so much, kind of behind the scenes tension that has bubbled up around that group. I think there's a sense that's been pretty well documented that Durant has never sort of felt fully appreciated since he got there. Again, it was a 73-win team before he got there. It's not like they could get much better, right? Even in adding him, they could only win so many games in the season. It's always kind of felt like that. He's been sort of funny in the way he handles kind of questions about that. And but again, the things have just bubbled up that there's some resentment, might be too strong a word, but it's never felt like a great fit for everybody personality-wise and ego-wise, and they've sort of made it work for a few years, obviously at a very high level. But it almost does seem inevitable that he's going to be gone, whether it's New York or the Clippers or somewhere else. So, yeah, I think it's very possible that, we might be at the tail end, however this season ends, of Durant's time in Golden State. And, again, that core showed that when Curry's out there and the rest of those other guys are out there, they're still awfully tough to beat even without him.
Do you give Houston any chance for the rest of the series? I see somebody on Twitter is making the joke that both sides were without their best players in the fourth quarter. Golden State were without Kevin Durant and Houston were without James Harden, who I don't think scored for the last 10 minutes of the entire game. It was a very, again, I was joking with someone, it was a little bit of a flashback to that Game 7 last year where, the Rockets missed 27 three-pointers famously and just seemed to collapse. Like I said, there seems to be something about these Rockets where when they think they should have the Warriors on the ropes, they sort of can't figure out how to close things out. So it's been strange to watch, and Harden, who is essentially so unstoppable every other time. Again, he I don't want to say disappeared, but almost, a sense of he disappeared there down the stretch. So it's strange to watch. To your question, though, I think you still have to give the Rockets a shot. They're going to go home in Game 6. Presumably Durant's probably out. And so the Rockets at home will probably play with confidence, and if they shoot well and they play well, they got a great shot. I think the shine is off of these Warriors a little bit in the sense that they did struggle at points this year. Curry has had kind of the nagging injury things here and there, and they have shown their age at points. But at the same time, if it comes down to a Game 7 in Oracle and Golden State's at home, you got to assume that they'll still be favored to pull it out. But so I don't rule the Rockets out yet, but the Warriors certainly have control of the series right now. Is it fair to say that the Warriors are looking more mortal in the playoffs than they have at any point since 2016, and perhaps even including 2016? Because let's face it, the finals in 2016 were one of the most ridiculous sporting events we've seen over the past decade or so. So even including that, there are, as you mentioned, there are chinks in the armour here which teams can expose. And I do wonder if a team should just rock up to the Oracle Arena and play like the Thunder played in 2016 and just basically fight them. Right. Yeah, it's one of the interesting things without LeBron, obviously, in this year's playoff was a sense of, okay, you had a sense in the West it was going to probably come down to Houston and Golden State. Obviously, Denver's playing awfully well right now. And so they're going to be a challenge, assuming it's them in the next round for whoever makes it out of this series. But then in the East, you've got, Milwaukee looking awfully good, Toronto with Kawhi Leonard.
So whoever gets through to the finals, even if the Warriors get back there, they're going to be facing some new challenges in the conference finals and then in the NBA final if they made it. So, to your point, I mean, I think that the Warriors have looked a bit more human this year. I think it speaks to how hard it is in any sport at the highest level to maintain that sort of level of just incredible record-setting greatness beyond a season. Again, they've been very good. They've won more championships, but it's hard to maintain that level of sort of infallibility year to year to year. You just don't see it very often at any level, I don't think, even when the talent's the same. So, I think they've looked a bit more human. But I think you're also saying, again, they still certainly show that potential to kind of bring it back to that level and show a bit of what made them what they've been the past few years.
Just a quick word on the East then. Milwaukee dumped Boston out last night. Is there any hope at all for them if you see them getting to the finals? Because I guess if you're going by bookmakers' odds at this point, or you're looking at the favourites, it's probably going to be a Warriors versus Milwaukee NBA finals at this point if we're sticking our neck out. Would you give Giannis and his crew any chance at all in that finals?
I would. I'd give him a shot. Again, it's experience is always an issue in the NBA finals, especially in a team that's been there before and has that many veteran guys who've been through the rigors of that series. They know what it feels like. They know what the pressure's like. That's a huge advantage for Golden State. But Giannis is playing at such a high level. There's a chance that they'll have been better rested and had a little more or a little less sort of wear and tear going into the finals if they make it, based on how quickly they've gotten out of these first two series. Malcolm Brogdon, if he's back and healthy, with Bledsoe, with Giannis, with Chris Middleton, that's a really good team, and they're well coached. I think you have to give them a shot just because they're playing awfully well, and they've got, at the moment, maybe the best all-around guy in the league, or certainly I think this year's MVP in Giannis. So I'd give them a shot.
Just one last thing before we let you go, Ryan. Obviously, as LeBron's biographer and all that, just a quick question on the Lakers. There was some suggestion that he might be hooking back up with Tyronn Lue. That looks like it's not going to happen. The offer apparently from the Lakers was miserable, according to some sources. People were kind of accepting that as fact and giving their takes on what the Tyronn Lue LeBron James partnership would look like, and naturally Kyrie Irving's name was thrown into the mix. Even without Tyronn Lue, could we see a Kyrie LeBron reunion in Los Angeles next season?
LeBron's move out to LA was so sort of, the way it came about, it wasn't surprising ultimately, but it was still sort of an oddity, going out to a team that really wasn't ready to contend, and then the moves they made didn't make it any better. And then his injuries and the way the season went, and now their off season has just been sort of a comic relief in the midst of these playoffs. And then Kyrie's kind of his own odd guy, so I feel like you can't rule anything out with him and with them. I think it's possible that he could reunite with LeBron. He remembers how good they were when they were together, and he certainly seems like he's probably on his way out of Boston. I think everybody involved probably thinks that's the best move for the Celtics, including Kyrie. I don't know. It's going to be incredibly interesting to watch how the offseason breaks down with LeBron, with the Lakers, with Kyrie, with Durant. The NBA, the story so much in recent years is the finals are interesting, but what happens next? That offseason is incredible to watch, and obviously those will be a couple of the biggest storylines, where Kyrie lands, assuming LeBron stays in LA, Durant, the teams that are in play there. It's going to be a circus.
Listen, Ryan Farmer-Jones, thanks a million for staying up for us so late. Great to chat to you.